Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the D in WhatIf, with another fanfiction. This is the movie of what if Deku was in love with a Neko. All credits for this video go to their respective authors. So please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Summary: a prince out on an afternoon ride, far away from his controlling father, stumbles across an injured feline, an Abyssinian, injured in a hollowed-out fallen tree. Not wanting to leave the poor creature there, the Emerald Prince takes the hurt feline home with him, not knowing what he was truly getting himself into, or what part his father had to play in the tragic life of the little Abyssinian. The truth is finally revealed one winter day when an angry Izuku returns to his rooms, in hopes of cuddling with his new companion, only to find something, or someone, else entirely withering across his bed. Chapter 1: Emerald Prince Izuku. Notes: Chapter text. About 10 years old. Please Prince Izuku focus. We are going over the history of our great nation. Izuku's tutor, Grand Torino, said scowling when he turned around, looking back at his student from his chalkboard to find the little boy staring at a book full of facts about the mysterious Neko people. Izuku's emerald eyes shining bright with interest. Completely enraptured in the book, Grand Torino let out an irritated groan as he walked over to the prince, hitting the desk with his cane once he was a few feet away. "Sir," the little green-haired boy shrieked, startled, throwing his hands in the air and almost falling back in his chair. "Prince Izuku, this is very important, and you know your father doesn't approve of your fascination with Nekos," the old man scolds, snatching the book from the greenette's desktop. Izuku's emerald eyes widen as he scrambles to grab the book from his tutor. "I can't help it. There's just something about them that makes me want to know more," he defends, getting up from his seat to stand in front of Grand Torino. The older male sighs, running a tired hand down his face as he looks down at the book in his hand. He knows he's going to regret his next action, but there was something in those green eyes that told him there was no stopping this. All he could do was make sure Izuku was careful and didn't get caught. He didn't want to think about what the king would do to his son if he found out. "Ugh, fine, but don't let anyone see you with this book or anything else involving Nekos. Understand? You can look at them here or in your room, but no one must know," Grand Torino said, hoping that this little prince would get what he was hinting at and take what he was saying to heart. Izuku nodded to him, cautiously taking the red book from his tutor. No one knew that this was only the beginning of Izuku's Neko obsession, and everything he would learn would be vital for his future. About 16 years old. Those filthy Nekos are looking for a suitor for their only child, Princess Katsuki. This would be our last chance to strike, before they make an alliance with another nation, and they fall under those disgusting creatures' spell. A voice yells from the throne room, catching Izuku's attention as he walks through the halls reading the latest Neko book he could get his hands on. Over the years he had learned, painfully so, to not let anyone know about his interest or fascination with the Neko people. The words from the unknown voice catch the green-haired teen's attention. "The Neko kingdom is real. Father always told me it was just a myth." Izuku thinks as he sneaks over to the throne room door, slowly peeking in, making sure to not be seen. "Don't you think I know that, General? I received a fucking invitation for Izuku to travel there to be one of the goddamn suitors," King Hisashi hollered, slamming his fist down on his golden throne that was encrusted with emeralds and diamonds, beautiful carvings of mythical creatures and exquisite flowers. "What do you want us to do, my king?" another general says, stepping forward. Izuku gasps, not believing what he was hearing. Why would his father want to attack someone who never has made an effort to engage with the outside world till now? He also knew that he had to find a way to stop this, or at least let the Neko people know that someone was coming for them. The greenette listened for a couple more minutes, gaining as much information as possible before silently sneaking away and making a break for his tutor's office. He would do anything in his power to help the people he felt so strongly attached to, even if it cost him in the future. Present day, 21 years old. Izuku was rushing to finish his royal duties for the day, so he could finally get out and take his stunning snow-white mare for a ride, allowing him to get away from his father's insistent nagging and yelling. "Good day, Prince Izuku. I see you are in a rush today," Shoto says, walking into the prince's study. Shoto was Izuku's best and most trusted friend. He had come to their kingdom as an outcast thrown out by his father, and Neko, having come from a similar situation, had welcomed the scared boy into the family with open arms, as had Izuku, who didn't have any friends. They had instantly become fast friends after Neko had persuaded Hisashi into letting Shoto become Izuku's personal servant. The boys were 12 years old at the time. "Yes, father has been all over my case the last couple of days, and I need to get out of here for a few hours. Go for a ride or something. Anything to get away from this place." Izuku groans, sitting back in his chair, rubbing his hands over his face, feeling the slight stubble forming along his jaw. Well, it isn't noon yet, so if you get out of here soon, you'll have practically all day to spend beyond the castle walls, Shoto says, grabbing the finished paperwork off of the Greenette's desk. Oh, word came back from the western nation that a Neko had been spotted riding through their territory. I was able to get the report before your father saw it, Shoto said, his usually stoic look on his face. Shoto was one of the 3 people in the world that knew of Izuku's love for the Neko, and how much it saddened him to learn all of them had been slaughtered by his father 5 years ago. Izuku, well, his father, had been getting reports of a lone Neko traveling the outskirts of neighboring kingdoms for the last year and a half, bringing hope back into Izuku's life that some of the Neko people had survived the savage attack from his father all those years ago. He had kept the first report, alerting them of the Neko sighting, even breaking down into tears of joy as he read it. The report also said that it was in a fight, got injured pretty badly, and it was a woman. Izuku's attention snaps up to his friend, the information ringing in his ears. A woman, the tall Greenette thinks, feeling a warm sensation fluttering around in his stomach. I want all the reports pertaining to the Neko woman, and my father can't learn about her. I don't even want to imagine what he would do to her, Izuku says, finishing up the last little bit of work before standing up. Shoto nods, collecting the papers before following his friend out of the room. They part ways before the hallway leading to the servants' wing. The prince nods to his friend as he walks into the kitchen, waving and smiling to all the servants he passes, making himself a snack for his ride. Prince Izuku, you don't have to do that. It's our job, so let us do it, one of the palace cooks says, walking over to stand beside the smiling Greenette as he finishes making his lunch and snack. Don't worry about it, Tsuyu. I was only making myself something to eat for my ride today, Izuku says with a sincere smile on his face. Unlike his father, who treated the servants like trash beneath his feet, Izuku and his mother treated the people that worked in the royal palace like family, or at least his mother did. Tsuyu let out a defeated sigh as she walked away, going back to what she was doing. Before yelling back at him, I told you to call me Tsuyu. Izuku lets out a deep rumbling laugh as he puts his finished food into his travel bag, waving goodbye to the women and men in the kitchen before walking out the back door towards the stables. An hour later, the Greenette was riding his white mare through the forest, bow and arrows across his back and sword strapped to his side, food and first aid supplies in the 2 saddlebags strapped in behind him. It was a warm late summer day as he galloped down one of the game trails deep within the forest, some of the tree leaves already starting to turn vibrant yellows, oranges, and reds, a gentle breeze moving through the branches, birds happily chirping away in the afternoon sun. A content smile settles onto Izuku's face as he enjoys the peaceful surroundings. It was moments like this where he really got to think about what he wanted, what he needed. That ache in his heart returned, reminding him that there was still a piece of him missing. He was so caught up in his lonely thoughts that he didn't even notice that the birds had stopped their chattering. And there was now a heart-wrenching, painful cry echoing through the forest. When Izuku finally noticed the sudden distressed feel in the air, coupled with the anguished wailing, the Greenette's mare stops under him, bobbing her head while letting out soft grunts. Whoa girl, what's the matter? Izuku asks his horse before she rips the reins from his grasp and starts running through the forest, off of the trail and into an unknown part of the woods. Akari, where the hell are you going? He shouts, holding on for dear life to her mane as she weaves through the trees towards the distressed cry. It was then that Izuku took a second to actually listen to the call, an urgent need tugging at this heart to find the creature and make sure it was okay. After a couple of more minutes rushing through the trees, getting whacked by branch after branch, they arrive at a small clear pond, with a fallen hollowed-out tree along the right edge. There was a heavy scent of volcanic ash in the air. It was a few feet from that tree that Akari stopped running and stood still, panting, nodding her head towards it, blue eyes looking right into Izuku's dazed green ones. With slow, conscious steps, he made his way over to the creature, crying out. There, under the cover of the fallen tree, was a large golden Abyssinian cat laying on one side, a short dart arrow sticking out of its other side. Izuku wanted to cry at the sight before him, his emerald eyes meeting the most beautiful shade of scarlet red eyes he's ever seen. His heart skipped a beat as he stopped dead in his tracks for a split second before the cat broke eye contact when its eyelids closed, face scrunching up in pain. Oh my god, Izuku finally said, rushing over before the Abyssinian let out a threatening hiss towards him. It's okay, it's going to be okay. I'm not going to hurt you, I promise. I just want to help, he says, holding out his hand for the feline to smell, keeping eye contact, trying to show the animal that he wasn't a threat. The golden Abyssinian tentatively goes to sniff his hand, its scarlet red eyes never leaving his green ones. Its face lights up, eyes gaining an unknown shine at Izuku's scent before lightly nudging his fingertips with its wet pink nose. Izuku's eyes widen in surprise and happiness as he rushes over to his saddlebags, pulling out his first aid kit and running back over to the Abyssinian. Akari whinnies lightly, slowly walking over to stand behind her green-haired prince. It's going to be okay, but this might hurt, Izuku tells the cat, not knowing why it bothered him so much that he was going to cause the creature more pain. The feline nods to Izuku's words, startling him for a second before he lays one hand on its silky soft fur, the other to grip the dart, getting ready to pull it out. Before he can stop himself or give it a second thought, the words are out his mouth. "I'm sorry." He pulls the dart from the animal's side, as the beautiful golden creature lets out a deafening howling cry of pain before passing out cold. Chapter 2, The Neko Princess Katsuki. Chapter text. About 10 years old, Katsuki runs through her palace home, her tutor hot on her trail, a wicked smirk on her face as she speeds up, sliding under a crate 2 servants are carrying, jumping up again to continue her sprint. "Princess Katsuki, please come back here," the woman calls out after the rebellious Neko kitten. Katsuki grunts in disapproval, before opening the door to the royal gardens and climbing up a sakura tree on the border of the lush green lawn, a playful giggle on her lips as they curl into a smug smirk. The older woman runs out the door, her dress bunched up in her clawed fingers, dark eyes darting around the area, black ears flicking trying to hear any sounds that could be the runaway kitten. The dark-haired woman hisses, turning to go back into the castle. Katsuki watches from her perch, a satisfied grin on her pale face. Her blonde hair hung loosely over her shoulders, leaves and small branches getting caught in the blonde hair. The little Neko girl hated her lessons. All she wanted to do was train to be the greatest warrior her people had ever seen. Not learn about stupid diplomatic tactics, to go out into the world and conquer it. She longed to see the outside world. Katsuki couldn't figure out why she wanted to leave so badly, but she felt like she needed to go out into the great beyond, that there was something or someone out there she needed to find. About 16 years old. "This is fucking ridiculous," Katsuki growls, crossing her arms over her chest as the seamstresses work to get her gown ready for the arrival of all the suitors her parents invited to court the blonde-haired Neko princess. "This is tradition, I'm afraid, Your Highness," one of the seamstresses says, a light giggle in her voice. The other 2 laugh at the pouting princess as they finish their work. The gown was an elegant empire-style crimson dress with delicate golden designs embroidered all along the skirt, jewels scattered within the intricate stitches. The sleeves were a slit sleeve, the it tapering off at her wrists. It accented her figure and beauty in all the right ways. "Are we almost ready?" Mitsuki asked, walking into the room, wearing a similar dress with less delicate embroidery. "We are just finishing up, Your Majesty. All that's left now is for the hairdresser to come in and do the princess's hair and makeup," the head seamstress said, standing in front of the commanding queen. "Fuck that. I ain't wearing no makeup for those depraved dogs," Katsuki growls, glaring at her annoyed mother, her blonde cat ears folded back, her sharp canine teeth bared. "Oh, calm down, brat. We are doing this for our people's safety, whether you like it or not," Mitsuki says, glaring back at her angry kitten, with a sad glint in her matching crimson eyes. She didn't want to do this to her only cub, but they had no choice. They had been receiving warnings of an impending attack for months. That was the reason they had decided to have their daughter marry a king or prince from another nation. Usually, they would only allow a Neko to marry into the royal family, but they needed the extra protection that came from making a marriage alliance with a powerful nation. "My queen, the king, has requested your presence in his study," a servant said, coming to stand behind Mitsuki. She turns to look at the servant in question, before nodding. "Okay, I will be back. Let's wait on doing Katsuki's hair and makeup till the guests arrive. That way she can't ruin it or wipe it off," the queen says, smugly grinning at her still glaring kitten, who was now crossing her arms with sass. "Yes, Your Majesty," the 3 seamstresses replied, bowing low as she walked out of the room. Katsuki groaned, letting out an aggravated huff. Katsuki knew she needed to do this for her people, but that didn't make the ache in her heart go away. The ache that told her she was supposed to belong to someone else. Mitsuki had just walked into her husband's study when she noticed him pacing, fear written all over his face, tail whipping around anxiously behind him. Worry instantly flooded her system as she walked up to him. "Dear, what's wrong?" Mitsuki asked, becoming more concerned by the second, as her mind came up with all the horrible possibilities it could be. "I just got this letter from our friend inside the Emerald Kingdom. They say the king of that nation is the one who plans to attack and will attack 2 weeks from when this letter was written," Masaru says, handing the letter to his surprised wife. The Emerald King. They hadn't had contact with the outside world for 6 generations. The Bakugas didn't even know what this horrid king looked like. "Masaru, this letter was sent 1.5 weeks ago. We need to start evaluating the people." Mitsuki panics, distress in her crimson eyes. Masaru walks over to her, bringing her in for a comforting hug. "I have already had all the soldiers put on high alert and told all the civilians what to do and where to go if we are attacked. Most of them have already started heading for the tunnels to the other side of the mountain, to our emergency fortress. Our friend in the Emerald Kingdom thankfully wrote that there is no spy here, but we need to continue with our plan. The only way our people and our daughter will be safe is if Katsuki marries someone from a more powerful kingdom. Masaru said softly, rubbing his wife's back as he held her close, lightly scenting her. Maybe we should give Katsuki the name of this friend, so if she ever needs the help, she has it, Mitsuki said, pulling back to look up at her mate, her blonde ears pulled back in apprehension. Yes, you're right. Are you sure we can even trust this Izuku Midoriya with our daughter? He asks, still a little unsure about this unknown outside source. Yes, he is the son of Neko, the human that we took in for a time when I was a teenager. She was taken by a human male 17 years ago. I tried to save her, but this was a sore spot for the blonde Neko queen. Neko had been her only friend during the hardest part of her life, and the day the Greenette was taken from her was the worst day of her life. She wondered every day what happened to Neko for years, until 15 years ago, when she received a letter from a mysterious person. When she opened it, she saw that it was written in the code Neko and she had made up if they were ever torn apart. Mitsuki cried when she read what happened to her best friend and secret crush. Very well. We should write down everything we know and anything else that could help Katsuki if something should happen to us. Their eyes meet, both glassy with unshed tears, filled with sorrow. This was not how they thought their lives would go, how their daughter's life would go, but they needed to do everything they could to protect the small population of Nikos left and their only kitten. The next few days were chaos as the palace staff got ready for the royal guests, and the soldiers ready for the attack. So far everything was going great, at least for the king and queen. The princess, however, was having the worst time ever. All these suitors were trying to paw at her and kept smothering her in horrible pickup lines, trying to earn her favor. Thankfully, none of them could smell her scent or they all would have run for the hills, like the servants and Neko nobles wished to do. It was early evening on the third day, the day the Neko king and queen were going to announce the chosen mate for the princess. Just as everyone was gathered in the ballroom, an explosion shook the palace. People started screaming and crying, saying that unknown soldiers were burning the royal city down and marching on the palace. Pandemonium broke out through the castle, people screaming and scrambling to get away from the enemy forces. Some kings that were there as suitors for Katsuki lent their troops to help try and defend the Neko people, but the mystery army was too powerful and large. They outnumbered all the soldiers trying to defend the Neko kingdom, in a mad dash to protect their daughter, who was fighting off 2 enemy soldiers, trying to protect a group of 3 Neko children. A passing group of 5 soldiers noticed the princess and started heading for her, making Masaru and Mitsuki run even faster to save their kitten. Katsuki, the blonde Neko girl's parents, scream, running to protect their daughter from the sudden arrival of the 5 enemies. Masaru pulled his sword to block 2 incoming blows. Mitsuki did the same with a third, while Katsuki is forced to run away with the 3 Neko children. Katsuki, run now. Katsuki had stopped and was coming back to help her parents after she got the kittens to safety. But when she was on her way back, her parents saw her. Run, baby, get out of here. We love you, Aizawa. That was the last thing her parents said to her before their most trusted friend and counselor scooped up the screaming and crying blonde girl in his arms and made a break for it. The last thing Katsuki saw before they ran into the tunnels was her home going up in smoke and hearing the screams of her people. Aizawa collapsed the cave entrance after that. About 19 years old. Chief, I have some news from the mainland, a fisherman said, walking into Katsuki's hut while she was sharpening her sword. Katsuki doesn't even look up. What is it? Her voice is firm, filled with authority as she finally looks up from her blade, noticing the fisherman's tense shoulders and worried expression. There are rumors that some humans think they know where we are. A man was boasting about it in the local tavern. The man said, standing in the doorway of the blonde Neko's hut, thanks to Nimurikaya's amulets that she had made for the Neko people, after coming to their aid after the attack on their kingdom, to make them appear human. They were able to trade with the human towns on the mainland and settled on the coast. It also allowed them to keep an ear out for any threats towards them as well. She was a longtime friend and ally of Aizawa from before Katsuki was even born. Their island was 100 miles off the coast, 150 miles east of their old nation. Perfect place for them to have safety and privacy, and to be able to securely defend themselves from invaders. Katsuki became rigid as she stood up and marched out of her hut, looking for Aizawa. They had always feared that the humans would find them, but they never thought it would happen so soon. Aizawa, Katsuki yelled in frustration at not being able to find the older male Neko. She never did have very good patience. Chief Katsuki, is something wrong? The older Neko said, appearing out of nowhere, shocking the young chief before she glared up at him. We have a problem. That was all she said as she motioned both Neko males to follow her back to her hut. After the fisherman told Aizawa what he heard, they called for an emergency tribal meeting, wanting to know if anyone else had heard anything else or saw anything suspicious. There were a few reports of ships getting close to the island, but no any more rumors of humans knowing where they were. They all continued to talk for another 2 hours, Katsuki sitting in her wooden chief's chair covered in pellets, silent, taking in everything. People were starting to get scared and becoming panicked. Everyone, please, calm down. We don't know for sure if they will find us nor what would happen if they did. For all we know, the nation that attacked us thinks we are all dead and won't pursue random rumors boasted about in lowly fisherman tavern. Aizawa said, trying to pacify the fearful crowd. I will go to the mainland and draw their attention away from us. We can't take any risks, Katsuki suddenly said, silencing the room and shocking them all. Everyone was silent for a spell before they all started talking at once, some standing up in protest. What no? We need you, Chief Katsuki. Let someone else go. You are too important. Please don't leave us. Enough, Katsuki howled, standing up, authority practically radiating off of her as she stood tall on her platform. This is not up for debate. I am the most capable of holding my own out there, and I possess the natural ability to take a natural human and feline form. Aizawa can lead you all till I return. As soon as we are safe, I will return. Tears were filling her people's faces as they looked up at her. They all knew she was right, but that didn't stop them from worrying about her. No one said anything as Katsuki walked out of the hut to start her preparations to leave. I have something for you, Chief Katsuki, Kayama said, walking up to the young blonde. It was the following day from the meeting and Katsuki was loading up a boat to take down the coast before landing near the next town to the south. Kayama, what is it? Katsuki asked, turning to look at the witch. The older human woman smiled, handing her what looked like a small pocket mirror with a red cat carved into the silver lid. She looked up at the woman, an eyebrow raised in confusion. This is a communication mirror. It will allow you to talk to us and us to you, to make sure you are okay. Kayama's voice was soft, and dark eyes filled with sadness, gazing down at the young Neko that she had grown so close to in the last 3 years. Thank you, Kayama. Katsuki smiled at her heart aching as the woman pulled her in for a hug. Not realizing the rest of the tribe had shown up to wish their chief good luck and give her something to help her on her journey. Everyone took turns giving the Neko chief food, clothing, medical aid, or money. By the time the last person was done, Katsuki had more than enough stuff for her trip and hoped she wouldn't need to use all of it, especially the medical supplies. I will return, Katsuki promised, boarding her boat, her crimson eyes meeting Aizawa's as he nodded. We await your return, Your Highness. That was all he said before the wind caught the sails of the blonde's boat, pulling her towards the mainland. About 21 years old. Fuck, that bastard got me good, Katsuki thinks as she limps through the forest in her feline form. She had been in a western kingdom, passing through on the outskirts of a village when a band of 7 bandits saw her and came after her, hoping to capture her and sell her to the highest bidder. But what they didn't expect was to find one of the greatest warriors in history. Katsuki obliterated them, but not before one of them shot her with a dart before he died. Now, the golden cat was stumbling over to a hollowed-out dead tree, collapsing, letting out painful wails as she lay there bleeding out, just when Katsuki thought she was never going to see her people again. That her special line of Neko blood was going to die out, a green-haired man riding on a beautiful white mare galloped into the clearing. The horse came to stand nearby, the greenette hopping off and running over to Katsuki. Katsuki was completely enraptured by his mesmerizing emerald eyes, and when he held out a hand for her to smell, her instinct shouted inside her, mate, found mate. It kept saying as she let the mysterious man help her. His voice was just as comforting as his scent, wrapping around her in a warm embrace. Katsuki's last thought before falling unconscious from the pain was, I hope this isn't a dream. Chapter 3, Izuku's New Companion. Chapter text. Izuku had never felt so worried as he did cradling the injured feline to his chest, sitting atop Akari, racing through the forest back to the palace. Please be okay. He kept chanting in his head, the feeling of urgency only growing. When he finally made it home, he didn't even bother with putting Akari away before bolting for Koji Koda's room. He was one of the stable boys and the vet for all the animals on the palace grounds. Izuku had spent more time than he should have working with him, learning how to take care of all sorts of different animals and their ailments. Koda, I need your help, Izuku yelled, bursting into the vet's workshop, still cradling the unconscious golden Abyssinian protectively in his arms. Koda came out of one of the side rooms, surprised. Prince Izuku, what's wrong? He said, hurrying over to the greenette's side and examining the bleeding cat. What happened to her? I found her. Is it a female? Izuku asked, realizing he never bothered to check before trying to help the injured furball. Koda nodded, running over to his supply cupboards to grab what he needed. I found her bleeding out from a dart in her side under a hollowed-out dead tree. Akari was the one who heard her first. I was amazed. She has never ripped the reins from my hands and headed off into the woods on her own. It was the strangest thing. Akari was even careful on the ride home. Izuku tells him that emerald eyes never leave the golden cat. Felt that familiar pull to the creature, just like he did when he first made eye contact with her. That's incredible. This is truly an amazing feline, especially if her cries could get the most loyal and well-trained mare I have ever seen to go against her rider and run off into the unknown. She is in bad shape, but you did good, Izuku. I should be able to save her and she should make a full recovery. What do you plan to do with her? Koda says, nimble hands working to patch up the Abyssinian, not even sparing the worried prince a glance, but very curious about the fate of this cat once she was healthy again. Good, I was very concerned about her. I will be keeping her. She will live with me in my quarter. Father won't care. He doesn't care about the animals living in the palace, unless they are making messes around him, of course, Izuku says, gently petting the feline's soft furry head, stroking her behind her golden ears. True, okay. Well, I would say she should stay here for tonight. You should be able to take her back to your rooms tomorrow afternoon if all looks well. I gave her something for the pain and to help her sleep. Are you going to stay down here with her? Koda asked, seeing the already overwhelming devotion on the brunette's face towards the unconscious Abyssinian. A small smile on his face as he finished up the sutures along the cat's side. I would like to stay with her tonight. No one should be looking for me, other than Shoto, since father usually dines with the nobles and generals in the royal dining room, and I tend to just eat in my sitting room or study, Izuku said, looking forward to having a companion living with him in his quarters. The prince's rooms consisted of 4 rooms total. The sitting area, which was the first room you would walk into. His study, which was the door on the left when you walked into the prince's chambers. The washroom was the door to the right. And then his bedroom, which was the door along the same wall as the bathroom. The sitting room was a rather large rectangular room filled with couches and a handcrafted 4-person dining table. At the end of the room was a pair of double doors that led out onto his balcony straight ahead from the entry door. All Izuku's rooms were very large, but not as large as the king's quarters. Very well, I will bring you a temporary bed and let Shoto know you are here. I'll also bring you some dinner, Koda replied, straightening up back, now that he was done patching up the injured feline. Thank you, Koda, Izuku said, emerald eyes never leaving the prone golden cat. Koda smiles softly at him before bowing and taking his leave, leaving the brunette and Abyssinian alone. 7 p.m. Koda told me I could find you here. I brought you some dinner, Shoto said, walking into the vet's office, seeing Izuku still sitting beside the unconscious feline. Shoto, yes, thank you. Did he tell you what happened? Izuku asked, taking the tray of food from his friend, who was looking at the sleeping cat curiously. Yes, I was honestly just as surprised as him. Akari has never done anything like that. He also told me you intend on keeping the cat as your personal pet. Do you plan on training her? Shoto asks in his usual bland voice, face as stoic as ever, but his mismatched eyes clearly examining the golden Abyssinian. Yes, I plan to have her with me, always. I do want to try and train her like I did Akari, but Shoto, there's something else. The brunette paused, lightly stroking a long furry leg, loving the feel of the silky soft fur under his fingers. When I was talking to her, trying to get her to let me look at her and asking if it was okay if I could pull out the dart, she nodded. She was watching me like she could understand me. Do you think? Emerald's eyes looked up at the bicolored male, who was staring right back. They had both read the stories about a special Neko being able to turn into their full feline form, but they didn't know if it was true or false. Maybe. Only one way to find out. You'll just have to wait and see. Do you need anything else before I retire for the night, my prince? Shoto asks, switching the subject like they were just talking about the weather. Izuku chuckled lightly, thinking it might be a good idea to have a book to read or his sketch pad with him for the night. A book and my sketch pad, please. Thank you, Shoto. Shoto bowed before leaving, closing the door behind him, once again leaving the brunette alone with his new companion. Izuku's thoughts were going crazy about if this large golden female Abyssinian could really be the last Neko they had been hearing about for the last 2 years. There was a part of him that doubted it, but then there was that inner voice that told him it was true, that this beautiful feline was it, that she was his in more ways than one. Those were the last thoughts he had that night after he ate and stayed up sketching the gorgeous specimen till the late hours of the night. Next day, 1 p.m. When Katsuki's scarlet eyes first opened, the first thing she saw was a worried freckled face, with stunning emerald eyes staring down at her. He's still here. Did he save me? She thinks, trying to sit up before Izuku is trying to get her to lay back down. No, don't sit up. You are still hurt. The vet, Koda, stitched you up as best he could. Are you thirsty? Izuku asked, concern easy to see in his emerald eyes as he waited for Katsuki to answer him. It did not even occur to him that she was a cat and therefore couldn't answer him. Before he could think he was crazy for talking to a cat like it was a person, Katsuki slightly stuck out her tongue, licking her nose before nodding, curious scarlet eyes staring into analyzing emerald eyes. I believe Koda left me a bowl in here to use for you, and I had a servant bring me some chicken broth with small shredded pieces of chicken for you to eat. Now that I think about it, would you rather have the broth instead? Izuku asks as he moves around the room, collecting everything he needs. He turns to look back at Katsuki, waiting for her reply. The broth would probably be better. I can't believe he is doing all this for a random hurt animal he found in the forest. But, damn, if I'm not happy he is. Fuck, he smells good. Katsuki thinks, looking at the bowl of broth in one of Izuku's hands before meeting his patient gaze again, nodding with a small meow. If you can't get up enough, I can spoon feed you if you want. Izuku rambles, sitting back down. After moving his chair in front of Katsuki's makeshift bed on the wooden table in the center of the room that Kota uses as an examination platform for the smaller animals, Katsuki watches him closely, smelling the warm broth in the air, scarlet eyes darting hungrily down at the bowl. Izuku chuckles, setting the bowl down in front of the golden feline, waiting. Be careful, don't push yourself. If you need help, just nudge the bowl with your nose, okay girl? Izuku's voice was soft and soothing, filled with concern and affection, making Katsuki want to just curl up on his lap and listen to him read to her for hours on end on a cold winter's night. If this fucker gets any cuter, I'm going to be in deep shit, she thinks, nodding as she tries to sit up slightly to get to the broth in the medium-sized bowl. Izuku moves it slightly closer, not wanting Katsuki to stretch too far. There you go girl, nice and easy. Izuku soothes as Katsuki starts drinking the broth, getting a piece of chicken here and there. A soft purr starts to fill the quiet room, making the greenette smile brightly. This is good. Maybe if I play my cards right, he'll let me stay. At least till I get better and have to head on my way. The Neko thought, enjoying her meal, but her instincts didn't like the thought of leaving the greenette or ever being apart from him in general. When Katsuki thought about leaving, or where she should go next, she felt like she was being stabbed all over again. Her heart physically tightened in distress at the mere thought of it. The Neko woman was not used to people being able to smell her scent, so when she started letting out distressed pheromones at the thought of the greenette no longer being by her side, she didn't think twice, or at least not until Izuku's face suddenly scrunched up before worry settled on his face. What's wrong, baby girl? Are you in pain? Izuku asked, fear lacing his tone, abruptly standing up to look at her bandaged side, worried it was hurting her, making Katsuki's head snap up from her food, completely and utterly surprised. Can he smell me? He's not a Neko, so how the hell can he smell me? She thought, cat eyes furrowing in confusion, before she shook her head, still staring up at him. Before her eyes softened and she started purring again, finding it endearing that he was so worried about her. You sure? You smelled like you were in distress, like when I found you, Izuku said, his heart aching at the memory of finding the beautiful golden feline in so much pain and anguish. Cautiously, he reached out a hand, just above her head, waiting to see if the cat wanted to let him touch her or not. There was a gleeful shine in scarlet eyes as they closed and leaned up into his touch, her purrs growing louder. You have to be the most beautiful feline I have ever seen, and your fur is so soft. I would love to keep you, but if you don't want to live here with me, I will return you to where I found you and will leave you alone. The choice is yours. If you want to leave, just... Izuku almost couldn't bring himself to say it. He didn't want to let this stunning creature go, but he knew he couldn't keep her if she didn't want to stay. Just bite my finger, but if you want to stay, rub against them instead. There was hope in his voice as he spoke, making Katsuki's heart skip a beat, longing shining in her scarlet eyes. If someone had witnessed how Izuku was talking to this ordinary-looking cat, they would think he was insane. But somehow Izuku couldn't bring himself to care. All his mind could focus on was the gorgeous Abyssinian before him. Without even a second thought, Katsuki rubbed her head against Izuku's fingers, not even thinking about her tribe or returning to her people. The only thing the blonde could think about was wild green curls and loving emerald eyes. Fuck, I'm in deep shit, Katsuki thought as a huge blinding smile spread across Izuku's face, eyes lighting up with happiness. I guess this will give me a chance to figure out why he smells so good though. Chapter 4, Living in the Palace. Chapter text. Later that evening, after Kota examined the growling feline, who didn't like anyone but Izuku touching her, had cleared her to be able to leave, Izuku brought the still aching Abyssinian to his rooms. Kota was glad to be rid of the feisty golden cat, nursing his scratched and bitten hands, for which Izuku apologized profusely for, while scolding the still slightly growling Abyssinian. You will love your new home, baby girl. You will have lots of room, and I hope that you will be able to follow me around the castle and then you can wander on your own, but you will need to stay away from the throne room and west wing. That's where my father lives. He's the king and doesn't mind animals here, but doesn't like them in his spaces. Izuku mumbles as they make their way to his rooms in the east wing, carrying the injured Neko in his strong muscular arms. Katsuki stared up at him with understanding eyes, completely absorbing everything he was saying. That weird vet guy called him Prince Izuku? I wonder if this is the Izuku Midoriya my mom and dad's letter told me about, Katsuki thought, her scarlet eyes looking around them as Izuku walked through the halls, waving at the servants and even saying a quick hello, surprising the golden feline greatly. From the few royal humans that Katsuki had met all those years ago, she assumed that all human royalty treated their servants like trash, but not Izuku. This human is really strange. I like him. Oh, Prince Izuku, I just got done putting the things you requested in your quarters, a brunette servant said, standing just outside the greenette's door in the hallway. Izuku smiled down at her, making Katsuki scowl slightly in jealousy. Stupid human, you're only supposed to smile like that at me, Katsuki thought, even surprising herself by the sudden possessive behavior. Where the fuck did that come from? Achako, thank you. I hope it wasn't too much of a bother. I just want to make sure I have everything ready for when I brought my baby girl up, Izuku says, his eyes shifting down to the now smug feline in his arms. Katsuki trills up at him, giving him a kitty smile, before glaring at the surprised brunette. Katsuki loved it when he called her his baby girl, letting out a heavy happy scent of caramel, making Izuku hold her slightly tighter from the scent surrounding them. Achako smiled at them, not knowing if she liked his sudden affection for the female Abyssinian, who he looked at like it was a person. It wasn't too much. It didn't really take too much time at all. Let us know if you need anything else, the brunette says, bows with a smile before walking away, feeling glaring scarlet eyes following her down the hall, making a scared shiver run down her spine. I hope you like your new home, baby. You will be able to explore it more after you are fully healed. Koda said you need to be on bed rest for another day or two before you should be good enough to roam around. I have the seamstresses make you a silk and velvet cat bed for you to sleep in. I'm sure as time passes, I will have more stuff made for you if you want. Izuku rambles, walking through the rooms, giving Katsuki a tour before walking into his bedroom where a large crimson and green cat bed sat on the right side of the bed, making the golden Abyssinian purr in delight, licking the greenette's hand as he set her down. There was a light blush that climbed onto Izuku's face coupled with a sheepish smile on his face. I should probably give you a name, huh? Izuku said, petting Katsuki behind the ears, the golden Abyssinian closing her scarlet eyes as she leaned into his gentle fingers. You remind me of a very special young woman I once heard of. I could never pronounce her name right. It always came out as Kaken. Maybe that's what I should name you, Kaken. What do you think about that, my beautiful girl? There is a loving smile on a freckled face, emerald eyes anxiously awaiting the Abyssinian answer. Kaken, I guess it's not that bad of a name. Definitely unique. I wonder who the woman is. Katsuki thinks, nodding her head, letting out a happy trill, scarlet eyes shining with delight. Izuku's heart skips a beat as his eyes meet Katsuki's, and he knows it's wrong to feel this way about an animal, but for some reason, he can't stop himself from going down the rabbit hole. He once again smiles brightly at her, giving her a gentle kiss on the forehead. Kaken it is then, my sweet baby girl, Izuku says, rubbing his nose with Katsuki's playfully, making them both feel an electric jolt run through their bodies. Katsuki closes her scarlet eyes as she begins to purr again, curling up in her illegally soft cat bed, quickly falling asleep surrounded by the sound of Izuku's chuckles and soothing voice. 1 week later, just as Izuku hoped, Katsuki was able to move around normally 2 days after he brought her back to his room. During that time, Katsuki was basically on house arrest. Izuku tested her abilities to understand him and listen to directions, finding out that Katsuki was indeed exceptional and very special. The first day Katsuki was allowed out of the prince's quarters, she followed Izuku out to the training area and watched him train with the greatest warrior the Emerald Kingdom has ever seen, Toshinori Yagi, who was now retired. But he still stuck around to train Izuku and to watch out for the honorable prince and making sure the king didn't lay a hand on him again. Katsuki loved watching Izuku train, especially since he would do so topless, and she suspected Izuku knew it too. Izuku was taking a break from combat training, leaning against one of the cherry blossom trees along the outer part of the training grounds, when he smelled the familiar smell of thick spices. His mind becomes slightly foggy with arousal, a smug smirk on his face as he looks up the tree to the first branch, 2 feet over his head. Is someone excited? The greenette teased, emerald eyes shining with mischief. Katsuki playfully growled at him, scarlet eyes shining bright with approval. Fuck, I really need to get my pheromones under control if he keeps this up. If I don't know if I'll be able to keep myself in this form and not fuck him selfless, Katsuki thinks, flicking her tail about, trying to rein in her aroused scent. Izuku looking at her like a delicious meal did not help her, not one bit. Fuck, Kaken, you got to calm down or people are going to start thinking I've lost my mind from getting a raging boner from a cat. But damn, do you smell good. Izuku lightly growls, having to look away, closing his eyes to take a couple of deep breaths, only to smell oranges in the air, making him let out an amused laugh. You know, finding my struggle funny isn't very nice, kitten. Oh, but it is, it's very funny. Katsuki grins down at him, standing up, stretching, clawing at the branch that was very clearly marked as hers now. The golden Abyssinian jumps down onto Izuku's shoulders, curling around his neck like a scarf. She licks his cheek before nuzzling against him, scenting him thoroughly, making the greenette chuckle as he scratches Katsuki between her golden ears. I'm done for today. Let's go back to our room so I can take a bath, then we can relax till dinner. How's that sound, baby? Izuku asks Katsuki. Walking inside the castle, the Abyssinian still laying across his shoulders, the golden feline purrs, rubbing their cheeks together, Izuku chuckling looking at her from the corner of his eye. They were just about to enter the east wing when a thundering voice boomed through the air, sending scared shivers down everyone's spines. Izuku, the king hollered, striding over to stand before his son, who thankfully resembled his mother more than his father and was at least 4 inches taller than the king. Yes, my king, Izuku asks, teeth gritted, glaring at the older man. Izuku despised his father and all the damage the villainous man had done through his life, especially to Izuku's mother. I am moving you out of the royal palace. Tamura will give you a list of castles that you can choose to live in. Asashi's words shock Izuku to his core. His father was getting rid of him, but why? It didn't make any sense. My king, may I inquire as to why you suddenly wish me to leave? Izuku asks, choosing his words carefully, not wanting to risk his father lashing out at him by hit Katsuki. I don't have to answer you, boy, but I will be generous and tell you that I don't need you here. I am the king, and I don't require your help to rule my kingdom. I will always be the king and nothing will change that. There is no point to you living here, the king proudly states before turning on his heels to walk away, but stopping before he starts up the central stair. You have the rest of today and tonight to pack. I want you out by tomorrow morning. Oh, and Yagi is going with you. I don't want that old fool in my home anymore either, a waste of flesh and space. With that, he walks away. That fucker, how dare he say such horrible things to his own son? Deku is 3 times the man and leader he will ever be. That motherfucking. Kaken, calm down, it's okay. Us leaving might be for the best, Izuku says, after sensing Katsuki's anger and hearing the growling in his ear. Her anger pheromones drowning him in the scent of a raging wildfire. Come on, let's go pack. I'm sure All Might and Shoto are already waiting for us. And true to his word, the pair were waiting at Izuku's door when the Greenette and Abyssinian showed up. Izuku invited the duo inside, taking a seat in his sitting room, on 2 of his couches. Katsuki curled up on a pillow next to Izuku, while the others sat across from them. I'm guessing you heard about my father's decree and that is why the 2 of you are here, Izuku asks, breaking the silence, running his large hand from Katsuki's furry head, down her back, and over her golden tail. His emerald eyes were curious, focused on their visitors. Yes, a royal guard showed up at our rooms and gave us a letter from the king. I fear this is about something more important than just wanting us gone because we are not needed, All Might says, sitting back in his seat, his blue eyes firm with suspicion. Indeed, I spoke with a few of the servants, and they say they overheard the king say he is sending Izuku away because he suspects him of gathering allies against him and that you were the one that warned the Neko people about his plan to attack. I believe he may have found out about the letters we have been taking before he could see them and about the last Neko, Shoto says, his face as stoic as ever, but his eyes saying volumes. He was worried and scared, not for himself, but for his best friend, Izuku. Does he know about her? Izuku asks, emerald eyes filled with fear, realizing they hadn't heard back about if the Neko woman survived the attack against her last week. I know he has heard about her, but I don't know if he knows about our involvement. I think that is another reason he wants us to leave. So, we don't aid the Neko woman, that he can get to her before us, Shoto replies. Katsuki goes rigid, realizing they are talking about her and her people, and finally getting the confirmation that Izuku was in fact the one that warned her parents about the attack, and that King Hisashi was the one who ordered it. What am I going to do? If Deku is the one who warned us and was trying to help me without me even realizing it for the last 2 years, then does that mean I should reveal myself? There were so many questions moving through Katsuki's head that she couldn't focus, just staring blankly up at Izuku as he talked to his friends. Izuku could sense something was wrong with Katsuki, turning to look at her with concerned emerald eyes, softly petting her. We don't have a choice. We have to leave, but we won't be idle. All Might, I want to continue to train with you, to train harder than before. I also want to use this to our advantage to possibly gather allies. The Neko people aren't the only people who he has hurt. Our people have also suffered much and are continuing to suffer. They are starving and forced into brutal labor for no benefit to themselves. If this continues, at least half our people will die before my father does. Izuku's words were fierce, his eyes burning with conviction. All Might and Shoto could feel pride swelling in their chest at the amazing young man Izuku was turning into. That no matter what his father did to him, he never let that monster destroy the goodness and kindness in his heart, or the hero the Greenette wanted to be for his people, the man his mother wanted him to be, before she was taken from them. There were proud smiles on their faces when a knock on the door sounded, making all 4 of their heads snap in that direction. Come in, Izuku said, clearing his throat. The door opened to reveal Counselor Tamura in his usual timid form. Prince Izuku, I have the list the king ordered me to show you, the sheepish man said, his back slightly bent like he was cowering or getting ready to be hit, which happened on a daily basis, considering who he was working for. Thank you, Temura, Izuku says, taking the sheet and looking over it, studying the positions of all the castles and their regions, looking for which one would suit their needs the best. There were 4 castles on the list, one in each corner of the kingdom. The capital city sat dead center of the Emerald Kingdom. The place that stood out the most to the trio was Mitsuki Castle, the palace Neko had built just before Izuku was born, her personal safe haven from the king and all the hateful people of the royal court. She spent most of her days after Izuku was born there. They lived there till he was 10, and the mother and son were forced to move back to the royal palace. Mitsuki Castle was on the eastern side of the kingdom, nearest to kingdoms that despised King Hisashi, but thankfully loved Izuku. It also had a very nice barracks that housed soldiers stationed along that region. Mitsuki Castle, Izuku said, circling the name with a pencil. Katsuki's head jerked up at the name, not quite believing what she just heard. Mitsuki Castle, as in Mom, she thought, feeling tears prick her scarlet eyes as she stared at the parchment. Very well, I will tell the king. There are wagons being prepared currently for all your belongings you wish to take with you, and a group of servants are on their way up with trunks as well, Temura says, before bowing and scurrying out of the room with a mouse from a cat. We should take our leave and start on our own packing. We will see you tomorrow morning, Izuku, All Might says, before heading for the door, Shoto bowing his head to the greenette before following the older blonde male. Once they were alone, Izuku turned his full attention to his distressed kitten, a worried expression on his face. Kaken, baby, are you okay? You started smelling distressed when we were talking about moving, Izuku says, scooping up his little feline partner into his strong arms, cradling her close to his broad naked chest. Katsuki whimpers as she lays her jaw on the greenette's sternum, gazing up at him with her sorrowful scarlet eyes. Missing her parents, Izuku's heart breaks for his mournful companion. He places a soft kiss on her pink nose, before putting one arm under her to support the golden feline and bringing the second one up to pet her soft furred head. The golden Abyssinian purrs against him, loving the attention from her human that was trying to help her feel better. Big scarlet eyes met affectionate emeralds, making Katsuki give a quick kitten lick to Izuku's chest, making the greenette chuckle before giving her one more kiss, then standing up, moving them to the bedroom to start gathering up their belongings. Chapter 5, Mitsuki Castle. Chapter text. Surprisingly, it didn't take Izuku as long to pack up as Katsuki thought it would. Hell, most of the stuff the greenette packed was for her or hers rather than his, making the feline let out a small cat-like giggle. The smell of oranges filled the space, making Izuku smirk before chuckling to himself, surprising the servants that were helping him pack and were moving the full trunks down to the wagons. Next morning, the warm morning sun peeked through the curtains of the prince's room, shining in Katsuki's face, making her growl slightly at the traitorous curtains for not doing their job. The golden furball was cuddled up close to Izuku's chest, the greenette sleeping on his side, one of his arms under his pillow and the other holding the blonde Neko close to him. This is nice. I wonder if I should just reveal myself. Maybe when we arrive at our new home. What about my people? I still need to gather the mirror that Kayama gave me that I stashed in that tree Deku found me in. The caravan will be passing by that area. I wonder if I will be able to sneak off to go grab it. Katsuki pondered, her scarlet eyes focused on the handsome freckled face, feeling that now very familiar warm sensation of love spread throughout her body. They had only known each other for a week and already Katsuki would die for him, would do anything for him, though she couldn't figure out why. Why was this human so important to her? Why did he make her feel this way? Katsuki hoped that some information would be at their new home that could help her figure all this out. Answer all these burning questions about Izuku, about their mothers, and about herself. Morning, baby girl. Did you sleep okay? A deep gravelly voice asked, breaking Katsuki out of her thoughts, seeing an amused smile on his face. Little shit, Katsuki thinks, glaring at him with a playful growl, which only made Izuku laugh more, kissing her forehead before getting out of bed. I love his kisses. Fuck, he will be the death of me. Izuku had thankfully remembered to leave out a set of clothes when he was packing. Thanks to Katsuki, who was sitting on them while they were putting his clothes in one of the trunks, not letting the servants pack them up. It helped that the golden feline only ever let the greenette touch her, something that Shoto had learned the hard way. Katsuki got up, stretching her legs and back. She lets out a big yawn, eyes closed. When the Abyssinian is finally done and opens her eyes again, she sees something that will not never take her breath away and make her extremely aroused. Despite Izuku having a strange feeling that his new furry companion was more than your average house cat, he never seemed to feel the need to go into the bathroom to change. The greenette was standing across the room, completely naked, grabbing a pair of boxers when he smelled a pleasant scent of spices in the air. He's doing this on purpose, I just know it. I know he can smell me, and he does this every fucking morning. Fuck, is all Katsuki can think, not being able to take her eyes off of the perfect specimen of humanity. Izuku is trying everything in his power to get dressed before Katsuki can notice his very obvious hard-on. Just like every day, Maybe I should start getting dressed in the bathroom, Izuku thinks as he breathes in Katsuki arousal pheromones. But before he can think any more on it, there is a knock on his main chamber door. He finishes getting dressed, walking out of the room, Katsuki right on his heels. They spent the next hour helping the servants load up the last of the wagons, Yagi and Shoto helping as well. Katsuki sitting on one of the horses, watching all the humans milling about, trying to hurry to get the prince and his allies out of the castle before the king woke up. It was 7:30 a.m. when they finally got everything strapped down and ready to leave. As soon as they were done, all the servants gave the leaving company sad smiles and silent goodbyes before going back inside. But what shocked the trio the most was that none of the guards were mounting up. "Are you guys not escorting us to the prince's new home?" Yagi asked the lieutenant that was in charge of watching the group. He gave them a small uneasy smile. "I'm sorry, Commander. The king has ordered us to not help you. You will be on your own." "I'm sorry, sir." The guard apologized, bowing to the prince before heading back into the castle. "Looks like it's up to us boys. Let's get out of here," Yagi says, walking back over to the young men. Izuku nods, climbing up onto the front seat of the first wagon, Katsuki jumping over to stand beside him before hopping up onto his shoulders, wrapping around the back of his neck, giving him a quick lick on the cheek and a nuzzle before nodding her head, ready to go. "Okay, let's get this adventure started," Izuku said, taking one last look at the royal palace before whipping the reins, nudging the horses forward. 3 hours later, they were passing near where Izuku had found Katsuki, when the feline all of a sudden jumped off the greenette's shoulders and darted into the forest, shocking the prince. Izuku instantly stopped the horses and jumped from the wagon, running after his companion. Emerald Eyes panicked. "Kaken," he shouted, but before he could run into the woods, Yagi stopped him, grabbing onto the worried greenette's arm. "Izuku, stop. You can't go running in there without protection. I'm sure she will come back, just be patient," the older man says, trying to comfort the glassy-eyed prince, whose eyes were looking around frantically to find golden fur. "But what if she gets hurt or lost?" Izuku says, not even looking at his mentor. "He's right, Izuku. Kaken wouldn't leave you for good anyways. That cat loves you too much. I'm sure she just had to go pee or something. She'll be back before you know it," Shoto says, still sitting in his seat on the front of the second wagon, a blank expression on his face. Izuku turns to look at him a second before turning back to the forest, fear setting into his bones. Akari whinnies from her hitched position to the first cart, nodding her head, making Yagi laugh lightly. "See, even Akari agrees with us. Just wait, okay, I'm sure she will be back shortly. Plus, Shoto is right. Kaken loves you too much to leave, permanently," Yagi says before walking back over to his wagon and looking over everything to make sure it was all still secure. "We might as well have lunch while we wait." About 30 minutes later, Izuku hasn't moved from his spot. Both Yagi and Shoto are now standing, leaning against their wagon, eyes filled with worry for their prince and his feline. It was then that Yagi noticed something move out the corner of his eye. His blue eyes followed the strange shadow, moving through the trees and shrinking. That was when he saw Katsuki's feline form walk out of the woods, silently. Before he could say anything, a tuft of blonde hair and ears appeared over the back of some of the trunks in his wagon, before they disappeared again. When Katsuki left, her point of view. When Katsuki was sure they were in the right spot, she had jumped from Izuku's wagon. "Man, am I glad I decided to send my stuff. Should be just up ahead," she thinks as she runs through the woods. "Kaken," the Neko hears in the distance, recognizing the distress in Izuku's voice. She stops for a second, looking behind her, where she knew her greenette was. "I will be right back, Deku. I promise," Katsuki thinks before continuing running towards her stash. When she finally gets to the clearing, her form changes to her Neko body, completely naked. "Fuck, I forgot my clothes don't change with me. It's a good thing Deku didn't come after me," the blonde says as she collects her stuff. "I'll have to stay in this form till I hide my bag in the second wagon. How am I going to do this?" She thinks for a moment before she realizes she will have to go back in this form, then shrink and turn back to put her stuff in the wagon. When she saw the carts again, the concerned look on Izuku's face nearly made her cry. He looked so worried and heartbroken. Katsuki could feel her heart breaking, but she knew it would disappear when she ran back to his side. Taking a deep breath, Scarlet Eyes turned back to their adjective, noticing analyzing Blue Eyes watching her. "Fuck, Yagi sees me. Hopefully he doesn't alert the other two." Katsuki shrinks to her cat form, grabbing her small coin-sized sack with her teeth before moving out, making sure her footsteps are silent. She can see Yagi watching her, tracking her movements. When the blonde Neko finally made it behind the second cart, she transformed into her original form, keeping an ear out for anyone coming her way. Katsuki hid her bag in a small nook between two trunks. "I will just have to remember to grab it before the boys see it," she thinks, before returning to her feline form and walking around the opposite side of the wagons from the men. Izuku calmed down. It's only been 30 minutes, Shoto says, trying his best to comfort the now pacing Greenette, who was fiddling with his fingers. I know. But before Izuku could finish his sentence, Katsuki let out a loud meow from her perch on their seat, startling the two younger males. Kaken, Izuku cried, rushing over to his golden Abyssinian, sweeping her up into his arms and covering her with kisses, before looking her over for any injuries. Are you okay? Why did you run off? I was so worried. Such a crybaby, Katsuki thinks, while enjoying Izuku's kisses. She trills happily at him, licking his nose. The scent of caramelized oranges flowed around them, alerting Izuku that Katsuki was happy with the affection and also very amused by his behavior. The Greenette pulls back, a scrutinizing glare on his face as his emerald eyes meet an amused gleam shining in playful scarlet eyes. This isn't funny, Kaken. I was really worried about you, Izuku whispers to her. Scarlet eyes look away, unease settling in them. Katsuki finally looked back at him, letting out a soft meow, ears folded back. I forgive you, but please don't do that again. Izuku, we should get back on the road. We still have 3 more days before we reach Mitsuki Castle, Yagi says as they all climb back onto their respective seats. It was going to be a long journey to their new home, and they could only hope it would go smoothly. 3 days later, we finally made it, Izuku cheered when their eyes finally fell upon the small castle on the horizon. Neko never wanted a huge palace to live in, so when she set out to build her own home after convincing, painfully so, Hisashi to let her build her own home, she decided to make it just big enough for her baby, herself, and a handful of servants. It was her own little paradise away from the unforgiving outside world. For not being inhabited for over 10 years, it's in rather good shape, Shoto says, as they lead the horses to the front of the castle, through the gate. I've had people coming every week to keep it in shape and clean, Izuku says, hopping off the cart, Katsuki right behind him. She stretches from her position beside him, before walking around, sniffing the area. This place isn't bad. Lots of green and red bricks and paint. Interesting, Katsuki thinks, feeling blue eyes watching her. Since her disappearing act 3 days ago, Yagi had kept a close eye on the Abyssinian, like he was studying her. What do you think, Kaken? Do you like it? Izuku asks, picking up his furry friend. Katsuki trills, nodding, looking up at him. Izuku chuckles as he goes over to the wagons again, starting to undo the straps. There's a note on the door, Shoto says, ripping a piece of parchment that was nailed to the door. Looks like the king has ordered us to live on our own. No servants. That's okay, we can manage on our own, though I don't know about cooking. None of us can cook, and Izuku's cooking will probably be what kills us, Yagi jokes, letting out a deep belly rumbling laugh. Shoto can't help but chuckle at the statement, a small smile on his face. Even Katsuki lets out a small cat laugh, the scent of oranges emanating from her. Ha ha ha, you guys are so funny, Izuku says, glaring at them, unlocking the castle door. Let's just get everything inside and get settled. I'm sure we will figure out the cooking situation later. There is a garden and small orchard in the back, along with a barn and pens for some livestock. I was able to bring quite a lot of gold with us that we can use to buy some animals with, and food. Shoto and Yagi nod, getting started on unpacking to wagons, eager to get settled. Later, while Izuku and Shoto were busy grabbing stuff from the first wagon, Katsuki snuck away to grab her purse. She had just dug it out and grabbed it between her cat teeth when she heard something behind her. So that's what you hid back here the first day, Yagi said, startling the golden feline, making Katsuki jump and hiss at him. He smiled softly at her. No need to worry, Kaken. Come with me. The older man turns and starts heading for the side entrance to the kitchen. Katsuki stands there for a second, trying to decide if she should follow him. If he wanted to out me or hurt me, he had plenty of chances to do so. Might as well see what he wants, the Abyssinian thinks as she jumps down to the ground and follows the blonde male into the kitchen. I'm guessing you are really that Neko woman we heard about, he says after Katsuki enters the room. He makes sure the younger males are not nearby. I don't want to hurt you, in fact, I want to help. Besides Queen and Co., I am the only person that knows more about the Neko people than Izuku. Katsuki still didn't move or answer him, unsure if she could trust him with this. Yagi nodded, understanding she wasn't going to reveal herself that easily. Very well. If you ever need anything or have questions that you can't answer, come find me. I won't tell them until you are ready, Yagi said with a friendly smile before walking back outside to help the boys. Katsuki sat there, on the kitchen floor for a few minutes trying to figure out what she should do about this new development. Well, fuck, this just got more complicated. What the hell am I going to do? Katsuki ponders as she walks around to the kitchen, looking over anything, remembering how the boys were complaining about who was going to cook. After the food they made on our way here, we are all going to die. Fucking hell. Deku, the shithead, is not allowed to die yet. She jumped up on the countertop, but before she could do anything, Izuku walked through the door, a wooden box in his hands and a smile on his face, eyes lighting up upon seeing the feline. Kaken, there you are. I was wondering where you wandered off to. What do you think? Izuku asks, setting the crate down on the butcher block island countertop. Katsuki meowed at him, letting out a light purr before jumping over onto the island, hopping up to rub against Izuku's broad chest, scenting him with her happy caramel scent. Izuku chuckles, picking up the playful feline and cradling her in his arms. The greenette kisses her furred head before putting her back down. Good, now let's get these cooking supplies unpacked. It's not much, but the pot and pan we brought to cook with on the road. It will have to do till we can go into town and buy some new stuff. There's no cooking stuff here, or really anything. Only the basic furniture was left behind, Izuku said, getting back to unpacking. Moving into the main house, Katsuki walking beside him, looking around. Izuku tried to enjoy finally being free from the royal palace. But there was something nagging at the back of his mind, something telling him that the peace wouldn't last. That something was coming, something terrible. His subconscious tells him to enjoy the small moments before they were inevitably taken away. Chapter 6, New Daily Life. Chapter Text. As the group got used to their new home, the golden feline had to admit it was a really nice castle, and she could tell that Neko was greatly inspired by Neko architecture, which the young Neko woman found great comfort in. It was hard work getting the vacant castle ready to live in. Sure, it wasn't as dirty or run down as it could be, but the lack of residents for over 10 years did make a difference. Izuku had decided he wanted to take his mother's old room, while Yagi and Shoto took the two of the rooms down the hall. Unlike back at the royal palace, each room wasn't like a miniature apartment, minus a kitchen of course. Here it was just a large bedroom and private washroom. Over the next couple of weeks, the trio of men had bought a small number of animals and had planted some seeds in the greenhouse attached to the kitchen. It was too late in the season to plant outside, but inside they could still get away with growing crops year-round. Izuku never let up on his training. In fact, he increased it to almost a dangerous amount. They would all train every morning till lunchtime, only to find food made and on the dining room table waiting for them. That was also a new development. During the first week, all three men took turns cooking, discovering that all of them were pretty hopeless in that regard, and after a very bad batch of food putting all the men on bed rest for 5 days, Katsuki realized she had to do something before these idiots killed themselves from their terrible cooking skills. So, from that day on, Katsuki would make the food, always making sure no one would see her. The first time the guys had come back in after a hard day working outside and found a full buffet waiting for them, the trio practically broke down into tears of joy. Katsuki standing in the kitchen doorway, watching the three devour everything in sight, not even bothering with table manners. It may have entertained her more than it should, but she couldn't help it. Watching them stuff their faces while crying tears of happiness. Praising the mysterious person for the amazing food was to go not to want to laugh at and make her chest fill with pride. Izuku and Shoto tried to find out who their mystery cook was, but they could never figure it out. The only one that knew the truth was Yagi, who kept his word and never spoke a word about Katsuki's true nature. Present, early November. I think it will snow soon. We should start preparing the castle and barn for the cold, Yagi said, standing in the kitchen, watching Katsuki make lunch for the younger males that were outside practicing. I do too. I can smell it in the air. The seeds are sprouting in the greenhouse, and I patched up the hole that was in the corner from that mouse, Katsuki says, smugly smirking, licking her lips as she stirred the pot of soup. Yes, thank you for that. Yagi laughs, smiling brightly at the blonde Neko. Are you going to tell Izuku anytime soon? This was a sore spot for the female, something she struggled with daily. Katsuki wanted to tell Izuku who she really was every day, but was scared too. Plus, she wanted to figure out why they were so drawn to each other before then, even with her in feline form. In time, I still have something I need to look into. The soup is done. Go grab the idiots and tell them lunch is ready, Katsuki says, before going into the pantry and shifting into her cat form, stuffing her maroon skirt and black peasant blouse into its secret hidey hole. Yagi chuckled as he walked out the side door to the backyard that the men used to train. Katsuki followed after him, eager to see her human in all his shirtless, sweaty glory. Izuku and Shoto were just finishing up their last sparring session when they saw the older male and sassy feline walk over to them. A happy smile spread across the greenette's freckled face as he kneeled down to let Katsuki jump into his warm embrace. Hey Kaken, were you helping All Might make lunch? Izuku says, Katsuki staring up at him with loving crimson eyes, laying against his chest, the greenette's arms under her butt to support her. Help? He didn't do crap. I made it all on my own. That's why you three are still alive, she thinks, playfully nipping at his chin, making Izuku chuckle at her before kissing her pink nose, resulting in Katsuki becoming a purring mess against him. Fuck, yep, he is definitely going to be the death of me. Lunch is ready, boys. Made soup, Yagi says, not even giving the strange lovebirds a second thought. Neither is Shoto, who honestly is used to the weird actions his friend does with the blonde feline. Good, I'm starving. Izuku smiles at him, standing up with Katsuki still cradled close to him. The trio head inside to have lunch. 1 week later. It was nearly midnight. They had gone to bed several hours ago, but Katsuki was still awake, waiting for the right time to sneak out of bed and Izuku's arms to go to the library and look for some answers. The biggest room by far in the castle was the library. That was the one room Neko spared no expense for, stocking the room with every book she could get her hands on, especially about Neko's, much to Katsuki's joy. The Neko woman hoped that she would finally find the answers to her questions. She had been looking for the right book for weeks now. They had moved into the castle a little over a month and a half ago, and Katsuki still hadn't found what she was looking for. Izuku was sound asleep beside her. When she opened her eyes to look up at him, Katsuki meowed softly, trying to see if her greenette was awake, but when he just groaned and shifted slightly in his sleep, she knew he was out for the night. Slowly, Katsuki crawled out from Izuku's arm and hopped down to the floor, taking one more last look at her prince before walking through the small cat door Izuku had installed in their bedroom door when they moved in. There was also one on the door leading from the kitchen to outside for the golden feline. Once she was sure no one followed her, Katsuki headed to the kitchen to grab her clothes. When the blonde was dressed, she headed for the library down the hall. It was maybe 2 hours before dawn when Katsuki finally decided to call it a night. This isn't getting me anywhere. Maybe I will just have to end up asking Yagi for information. Fucking hell, Katsuki whispered to herself, slumping into one of the chairs by the fireplace. With a deep annoyed sigh, the tired Neko got up and went to put her books back. When she was putting the last one away, she noticed something out of the corner of her eye. A silver bookmark, encrusted with small rubies sticking out from between two books a couple of shelves away from her, in a dark corner of the second floor of the library. What the? Katsuki thinks as she walks over to it, but before she could grab it, she heard a voice from down the hall. Kaken, where are you, baby girl? Izuku called out, making Katsuki groan before shifting, pushing her clothes to a dark spot between two bookcases. The golden feline ran down the stairs and into the hallway to see Izuku looking around anxiously. She let out a loud meow as she trotted up to him once he turned to look at her. Kaken, there you are. I was worried that I didn't see you when I woke up, Izuku said, scooping up the blonde Neko into his arms, hugging her close. Katsuki let out a little cat giggle, nuzzling under his chin, before playfully nipping at his chin and bottom lip. Emerald eyes went wide as he felt Katsuki nip at his lip, letting out a low groan unintentionally, feeling his body involuntarily reacting. The female Neko pulled back, stunned by the sudden noise she pulled from the greenette, feeling his body tense against her. Oh fuck, Katsuki thinks, letting out a thick wave of spiced scent, a light purr rumbling up her throat. She couldn't stop herself, not knowing why. Kaken, we should go. Go get ready for the day, Izuku said quietly, voice thick with arousal. Get a hold of yourself, Izuku. She is a cat. You should not be so attracted to a cat, even if her eyes are like a raging fire and she smells absolutely amazing, Izuku thinks as he tries to rein in his desire for the four-legged animal in his arms. Deep breaths, Katsuki. If you don't get yourself under control, you might turn back involuntarily. Wait, what month is it? Oh fuck, my heat is going to hit in December. What fucking month is it? Katsuki panicked, laying down on their bed while Izuku got dressed. Once the greenette was finally ready for the day, the pair headed to the dining room, where Yagi was just putting breakfast on the table, Shoto already sitting down in his seat. Morning, you two. Today we need to get some winter preparations done, Yagi says as he takes his seat to the left of Izuku, who is sitting at the head of the table, Shoto to the greenette's right. Katsuki hopped up onto the chair at the foot of the table, a small dish set out for her to eat off of. At first, everyone found it a little weird that Katsuki wanted to eat at the table, but Izuku didn't have the heart to tell her he couldn't. Yagi now understood why. And Shoto, he just didn't really care. Once you boys are done, I'll have you go out and do a quick workout, then get started in prepping the estate for winter, Yagi said, standing up, taking his dishes to the kitchen. Yes, sir. What about you, Kaken? Are you going to join us or chase the chickens around again? Izuku teases, staring down the table at his now pouting feline, who was glaring at him. She let out an angry meow coupled with a light growl, making Izuku and Yagi laugh, Shoto just sitting there watching the display. I don't chase chickens. That happened one time. Once, you mean human, Katsuki thinks, still scowling at her human partner, the room suddenly smelling of burning oranges. Izuku couldn't help but let out a deep belly-aching laugh as he stood up, kissing her head as he walked past. It was late afternoon before Izuku, Shoto, and Yagi came back inside to find a warm and large meal waiting for them. Izuku and Shoto were practically drooling as they ran to their seats. But before they sat down, a voice came from the kitchen. You fuckers better wash your hands first. It was a strange feminine voice that the two younger men had never heard before, startling them. But before they could run in there to find out who the voice belonged to, Yagi stopped them. You heard her. Go wash up. The food will be here when you are done. the older man said, watching Izuku closely, seeing the eager need swirling in his emerald eyes. He didn't know why, but as soon as he heard that beautiful, if foul, voice he was overcome with a strong urge to go towards it, to find its source, like it was a siren song. And he was a lonely sailor lost at sea. Izuku, go, Yagi said, silently, seeing the struggle on the brunette's face. Shoto had already walked away. Katsuki had turned back and had walked out of the kitchen to see the longing look in emerald eyes, making her heart speed up. When Izuku finally walked away, the older blonde turned to look at the Abyssinian, an unreadable expression in his blue eyes. You should really consider telling him, Yagi said before sitting down at the table. The entire time they were eating, Izuku was quiet, not able to get the unknown voice out of his head. When he had come back after washing up, the woman was gone, nowhere to be seen. Later that night, Izuku was relaxing in the tub when Katsuki strolled into the room, coming to sit on the small side table beside the tub, laying down on her stomach, her front paws crossed in front of her. Katsuki had sensed something was off with her brunette since lunch, worry coursing through her small body as her concerned scarlet eyes took in Izuku's naked form, the hot water making small beads of sweat build across his skin. Neither said a word, silence filling the space around them. Katsuki wished so much that she could talk to him but didn't. Was that woman the one who has been cooking for us all along? Who is she? Is she a village girl or an old servant? Why do I feel this way? I've only felt this way towards Kaken. Could Kaken be the mystery woman? Is my original hunch right? Is Kaken really the Neko woman we heard about all those months ago? Fuck, I have so many questions and no answers, Izuku thinks, rinsing his curly green hair, not realizing Katsuki was sitting by the tub. Could it be true? Izuku mumbles, suddenly smelling smoke. Katsuki gets out a small, troubled meow, startling the distant brunette. Oh Kaken, when did you come in here, baby girl? He asks, realizing the water was now cold. Was I really that out of it? Izuku thinks as he pulls the plug on the clawfoot bathtub. Katsuki can't help but stare at Izuku's strong-toned body as he gets out of the tub, realizing she really needed to figure out what month it was so she could make sure to leave for her heat. But there was a small voice in the back of her head that told her to stay, to mate with this handsome green-haired human prince. What am I thinking? I can't mate with him. If I do, then I'll get pregnant. At first the thought was alarming to the young Neko, but the more she thought about spending her heat with Izuku and having a litter of kittens with him, the more she realized how much she loved the idea. Fuck, this is ridiculous. Are you okay over there, Kaken? You're growling and purring at the same time, Izuku said, breaking Katsuki from her daydreaming. Izuku was standing in the bathroom doorway, a pair of pajama pants hanging low on his hips, a perplexed expression on his face. Katsuki shook her head, trotting out of the bathroom, not even giving the brunette a side glance. Izuku chuckled, seeing that the golden feline was embarrassed at being caught daydreaming. That night as they lay in bed, both couldn't help but think about each other and what their connection meant for their future together. Next morning, Kaken, Yagi said, walking into the kitchen that morning, seeing the blonde Neko make breakfast just like every day. It's Katsuki, actually. Katsuki Bakugo. That's my name, my birth name, Katsuki said quietly, not looking back at the old man. But she could feel his surprised gaze on the back of her head. That's the name of the last princess of the Neko kingdom. Are you? To say Yagi was shocked would be an understatement. He couldn't believe the Neko woman that had been living with them for 2 months and doing all the cooking and some cleaning was in fact a princess. Yeah, does your offer to answer my questions still stand? Katsuki had never been this sheepish or nervous before, but she never really asked for help either. Of course, ask away, your highness, Yagi said with a bright smile, coming to stand next to the younger blonde. Katsuki glared at him, slightly growling, ears folded back. Don't call me that. If you must know, it's Chief Katsuki. Anyways, you see how Deku and I are together, and he can smell my pheromones, which has never happened before, at least with a human. Do you know why, by chance? Katsuki asks, putting the cooked eggs and bacon on some serving platters. Come with me. Yagi turns and walks toward the main entryway from the kitchen to the rest of the castle, with a suspicious eyebrow raised and curiosity thumbing through her veins. Katsuki wiped off her hands on her apron and followed the older male out of the room. Yagi led her to the library. They went up the stairs to the second floor, to the back corner where Katsuki was that night. She saw the strange ruby bookmark. It was just 2 nights ago, and she hadn't been able to sneak away to look for it again after that night. He leads her right to the same bookshelf, turning to look at the surprised blonde Neko, before bending down and grabbing a deep red book with a Neko stitched into the cover. Katsuki looks at the cover and can barely make out the name of the book in the dim lighting. The Secrets of Fated Mates. This book was given to Neko as a gift from your mother. They weren't fated mates, but they had a feeling they were drawn together for another reason. So since Queen Mitsuki already knew everything in here, she gave the book to her best friend. Yagi said, his words gentle as he handed her the book. Fated mates. What does this have to do with Deku and me? Katsuki was confused. Fated mates. She had never heard of such a thing before. She remembered her mother once telling her about how there was someone out there for everyone, someone that you were meant to be with. Fated mates, was that what she was talking about? Katsuki ponders as she looks through the book. Page 5. I think you will find your answers there. I will be in the kitchen, and I'll let the boys know breakfast is done. Yagi whispers to her, a soft smile on his face, a pleased gleam in his blue eyes. He takes his leave, leaving Katsuki alone to look at the book. Page 5. The blonde mumbled, sitting down against the wall, opening the book. Page 5. Fated mates for the Neko people aren't limited to other Nekos. It is rare, but there are some that are a human Neko pairing. In this case, just like with a normal pairing, the two will be drawn together no matter what. The human will also be the only human that can smell the pheromones from their fated Neko partner. Katsuki's heart stopped, scarlet eyes going wide as she realized what had been happening between them added up to. Or fated mates, Katsuki thinks, scarlet eyes widening in shock. While at the same time, a pleased purr rumbles in her now warm chest. Chapter 7, What No? Chapter text. Izuku was putting more hay and straw in the barn as he thought about the last couple of months, about finding Katsuki, being forced to leave the palace, moving here, and hearing that stranger's voice that he could still hear in his dreams. So much had happened in such a short period of time, after years of the same old thing day in and day out. A mournful frown settled on his freckled face as he threw another pitchfork of hay into the barn's feed room. Not noticing his beloved Abyssinian was now rubbing up against his leg, scenting him with a concerned meow. Kaken, when did you get here, baby girl? Izuku asked, emerald eyes gazing lovingly down at the soft feline, whose scarlet eyes looked at him clinically. I'm fine, girl, just lost in thought, I guess. The inner turmoil was making Katsuki nervous, wanting more than ever to shift and hold him in her arms, but something was still holding her back, something telling her it wasn't the right time yet. The golden feline gave him another soft meow, causing the tall greenette to let out a sad chuckle. Setting the pitchfork aside and sitting down against the barn wall, Katsuki coming to sit on his lap looking up at him with worried scarlet eyes, just thinking about everything that's happened this fall. After doing the same thing for so long and never being able to fully escape my father, and now I'm here, the furthest point in this nation away from him. It still feels like a dream, but I miss my friends at the palace. I hope they are not being treated too badly. I wonder if I'll ever be asked to return, Izuku says, staring off into space ahead of him, thinking about what he would do if he ever had to return back to the palace, and by extension his monstrous father. Gods, I hope I never have to go back. Izuku, oh, there you are. I have a letter for you. It was just delivered, Shoto said, sticking his head into the barn. The bicolored male surveyed the scene before him, noticing the fear in green eyes and tired expression. Oh, thank you, Shoto, the greenette said, standing up after putting Katsuki on the ground beside him. He walked over to his friend, taking the letter from him. Katsuki and Shoto watched Izuku closely as he read the letter, emerald eyes going comically wide in surprise. Get Yagi. You all need to hear this, Izuku says, going to pick up his Abyssinian before walking past Shoto out of the barn. This letter is from the castle, from the king, Izuku tells them, standing at the head of the table, Yagi and Shoto sitting in the seats, and Katsuki sitting on the table beside the greenette. I am being removed from the royal succession. The king seems to think that he doesn't need an heir. Therefore no use in having to waste time and money on me. I was given this castle, but I will have no further support from the royal palace and am not welcome back. His voice was bland, not knowing how to feel about this sudden change. The room was completely silent. No one knew what to say, waiting to see how Izuku felt about this predictable turn of events. I'm free. I can choose whoever I want. My children will be free, but not safe. We will not be able to stay here. We will have to leave the kingdom if I want to stay free and don't want people coming after my family who want to make sure I don't stake a claim to the throne once my father dies. Izuku thinks, not realizing he was mumbling. Izuku, I think you might be right. We are safe here for the time being, but I think within the year we might want to think about leaving and moving somewhere that would welcome us, Yagi says, looking Katsuki in the eyes as he says the last part, hoping the blonde Neko chief in disguise would understand what he was hinting at. Scarlet eyes went wide as she caught on to what the old man was saying. Them coming home with me. Not impossible, but will be risky. Now that I know the truth about what Deku is to me, even before then I can't leave him behind. Her thoughts were grave as she pondered this, taking these 3 humans home with her. All Might is right. You have plenty of allies that would let us live in peace within their kingdoms, Shoto added, sitting back in his chair, mismatched eyes analytical, thinking about where they should go next. Once spring comes and the snow melts, we will leave. I know as soon as some of the lords around the kingdom get wind of this, their first course of action will be to take me out. At Izuku's statement, Katsuki growled, releasing a sudden thick wave of angry pheromones into the air, startling everyone. Kaken, what's wrong? Izuku was entirely taken aback by his feline partner's sudden change of behavior. No one will touch what is mine, Katsuki thought as she stood up and rubbed her head up and down the greenette's chest and arms. I don't think she likes that idea. The older male chuckles, his blue eyes closely watching the territorial feline. Well, it's late December now. That gives us about 3 to 4 months till we should leave, Shoto says, standing up, hand on his chin, deep in thought. I will start going through the list of allies and send letters to the ones that would most likely give us sanctuary. With that, the bicolored male walks out of the room, towards the library. Yagi goes to join the young red and white man, leaving Izuku and Katsuki alone in the dining room. The golden Abyssinian internally freaking out for how close her heat was. Late December. That means I have a week, 2 at the most till it hits. Fuck, what am I going to do? She thought as the greenette broke her out of her meltdown by picking the growling feline up and kissing her head. Come on, baby. I think we earned a day to rest. Why don't we go curl up in front of the fireplace in our room with a good book? Izuku asks her, petting her behind her ears, making the blonde Neko purr and lean into his touch. It was late afternoon. The greenette was sound asleep on the couch in their room, his book left open on his chest. They had been held up in the room for the last 5 hours after the meeting earlier that day, relaxing. Katsuki nudged his hand, checking to see if the male was awake. When he didn't move and gave a slight snore in return, the blonde knew she was safe to head outside. She hadn't been keeping up on her training, and now she needed to be ready for a battle for the first time in months. Katsuki stalked through the castle in her cat form, checking to make sure Shoto was not near the training yard. Katsuki had been training for maybe 30 minutes when she heard a gasp, freezing her in her spot before she turned to look at the bewildered expression on the usually stoic-faced Shoto. Oh my gods, you're... Shoto started, completely baffled to find the blonde Neko woman standing there in the center of the training area, dressed in brown leather pants and a leather form-fitting bustier coming down to about 2 inches under her breasts with a high neckline and no sleeves. Do not scream. It's just me, Kaken. You cannot tell Izuku, okay, she said, fear coursing through her veins a mile a minute. Katsuki wanted to be the one to tell Izuku the truth but was still scared to do so. How? Why? Shoto was so confused. He had heard something outside when he went into the kitchen to grab a snack but was not expecting to find a woman with golden hair, cat ears, and tail running through the motions with a short sword, with every clear and precise movement. Clearly very skilled and highly trained. I am just practicing. You know there is a battle coming and I plan to tell Deku the truth soon, so I'm here, trying to get better for my mate, Katsuki said, not realizing what she added at the end till it was too late. What are you making up your mind now that we are staying for our heat? Or are you going to give me whiplash again? Her instincts asked her, inner voice sounding rather smug. Oh, shut up. Like you weren't going to make sure we stayed away. Katsuki sasses back. True, so you are Izuku's soulmate then? Or fated mate as you call it? The bicolored man said, completely taking her by surprise, her scarlet eyes widening. How did you? Katsuki didn't know what to say. How does he know that? I figured it out. Izuku was talking one day during practice, before we came here and when we moved here. I went looking in Auntie Inko's library, where I found the book about fated mates. It didn't take me long to figure out you weren't your average house cat. I am actually really shocked that Izuku hasn't figured it out yet, he says, walking over to the sword rack and picking up his usual practice sword, coming to stand before the amazed blonde woman, a satisfied smirk on her face. I had a feeling you would figure it out first, at least on your own. Shoto chuckled lightly at her, a small grin on his face. Indeed, shall we? They spared for 2 hours, before Yagi came down and warned them Izuku was awake and seeking his feline companion. Katsuki had barely enough time to head into the barn and shift back before a worried greenette rushed out of the castle, frantically looking around for Katsuki. When the golden Abyssinian finally emerged from the barn, she trotted over to the relieved male, jumping into his arms as he covered her in kisses. Shoto and Yagi share a knowing look before chuckling and heading back inside. Chapter 8, Kaken, Summary, Smut Warning, Chapter Text. For the next week, Katsuki would train in the dark, after Izuku had gone to bed. Yes, it was cold, well more like freezing, but the thought of not being quick enough to protect her mate made her blood run colder than the air biting her skin. It was early January when Izuku had received another letter from the royal court. It was an invite to the King birthday celebration on January 27th, 2 weeks from now. Izuku could not believe what he was reading. The man that banned him from court sent him letters to say he's not his son anymore, wants him to come to his birthday party. To say the greenette was confused would be an understatement. He was completely utterly speechless and baffled. Then the anger set in. Izuku's blood started to boil at the invite, ripping it to shreds, growling, fuming furiously. Fucking bastard. Why the fuck is he doing this? He can go to hell for all I care, Izuku thinks, stomping to his room to cool off before he does or says something he can't take back. Yagi sees the young man stomp by, his blonde eyebrows raised in surprise at the usually happy brunette that now practically had smoke blowing out his ears. He turned to look where the younger male was coming from, where he saw the shredded invite. The furious brunette stomped down the hallway to his bedroom, when an overwhelming scent filled his senses and stopped him in his tracks. It was the thick, arousing scent of spices, with an undercut of something sweet. Izuku was entranced, his body moving on its own as he moved to the door to his room. What he found, he was not prepared for. There in his bed, laying under and on all his clothes, was a woman. A blonde Neko woman, completely naked, curled up in a ball, groaning in pain. "What the?" Izuku said quietly, feeling his dick already reacting in his trousers. He closes the door, locking it behind him, catching the attention of the strange Neko woman. Scarlet eyes go wide in fear and lust, ducking under one of the blankets. "Deku, fuck, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. If you want me to leave I will, It caught me by surprise," Katsuki says, rushed, worry tainting her tone, tears making her eyes glassy. "Kaken, is that you?" Izuku was bewildered. He couldn't believe what he was seeing, or rather had seen. Without even realizing it, he slowly walked over to the bed, his movements slow. "Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Izuku couldn't think straight. His entire body was aching for one thing, to breed the Neko woman on his bed. That small voice once again showed itself, urging Izuku to help her, to mate her, to mark her inside and out. "She is yours. Breed her. Make her yours." The voice chanted, practically screaming in his head. Katsuki could sense the change in him, her body reacting to it easily. She poked her blonde head out of the blanket, face flushing, eyes glazing over when they saw the lustful emerald gaze on her and the very evident hard-on in his trousers. Katsuki's ears laid back in submission, a gentle eager purr coming from her. Slowly, she crawled out from under the blanket, showing her bare form to him again, making her way over to him on all fours. The room was now thick with a sweet, spiced scent, the heat clouding their minds as Katsuki came to kneel in front of Izuku, her hands flat on the bed in front of her, breast pressed out slightly. His hand moves before his brain does. It comes to cup one of her breasts, squeezing lightly, his thumb running over her nipple, making a needy moan fall from Katsuki's slightly parted lips. "You're in heat, right, Kaken?" His voice is rough, heavy with arousal, his eyes raking over her body, seeing the growing wet spot between the blonde's parted legs from her slick. "Yes, my body wouldn't let me leave. It wants its mate, its fated mate." Her voice was level, her brain giving an automatic answer before she could think about it. Izuku wanted to ask what she was talking about, but his subconscious didn't need to ask if she was sure to know. He was sure. That's when it all clicked for him, everything that has happened between them. What his mother had once said to him before she passed. "One day you will meet someone unlike anyone else, and they will be your match, the person made just for you, your soulmate. Just remember that if you ever meet a creature where you can sense things about them others cannot, there is always a reason. Trust your instincts." Neko had told him, just before his 16th birthday, the year she died. Slowly, he leaned down, bringing his hands up to cup her flushed cheeks, laying a soft kiss on her lips, emerald eyes searching her face for what she wanted. "Do you want me to breed you, Kaken?" His voice was husky, thick with desire. "Yes, please," Katsuki cries, turning around on the bed and putting her face in the bed, ass up in the air, slick leaking down her smooth thighs. Izuku growled, rushing to shed his clothes, his rock-hard cock snapping out of his underwear, more than eager to become one with his mate. It felt like an eternity but was all a matter of seconds before he fully sheathed his leaking, aching cock within her warm, wet pussy, drawing moans of pleasure from the both of them. It was like they had gone absolutely feral, giving into their primal lust for each other's bodies. Katsuki pants under him, golden tail wrapping around his thigh, holding on tightly as Izuku pulls back before snapping his hips forward, setting a rough pace, his cockhead kissing her cervix. The growling brunette braces his hands on either side of her head, nipping at the back of her neck and back, leaving bite marks and hickeys as he goes. "Mine, my mate. Gods, you are so perfect, Kaken. I knew you would be," Izuku says, voice husky in her ear. She moans into the bed, feeling her first orgasming coming up fast. "Yours, I'm yours. Izuku, please." She didn't know what she was begging for, but before she could think about it, she was coming on his cock, throwing her head back as she cried out. It was then that Izuku pulled out, flipped her over onto her back, and shoved his cock back inside her, holding her hips as he fucked her. He bent over her and kissed her. Katsuki's hands instantly went up to grab his face. Holding him to her, before he could even ask, she opened her mouth for him. Their tongues collided, dancing together as he slowed his pace, going from fucking her to making love to her, ever so slightly. Their minds become less feral and more human, more loving. Izuku's mouth left Katsuki, moving down her neck, leaving kisses and hickeys as he went until he was at her breast, taking one nipple into his mouth and sucking hard, while the other was fondled by one of his large hands. "Harder, faster, please don't stop, Izuku." He loved hearing her scream his name in pleasure. Izuku could feel her come again, wetting his thighs with her slick. Get ready, Kaken, here it comes. Gonna come, you better take all of it, don't lose a drop. He growls, looking down at her pleasure-filled face, scarlet eyes clouded with lust. Give it to me. I want it. I want it so bad. Kittens. Please give me kittens. Katsuki cried out. It became too much for her body, her womb aching to be filled with his litter. Here it comes, you better take every last drop. I'm coming. Fuck. Izuku moans out, snapping his hips flush with her hips, feeling his cock past her cervix and into her womb. Katsuki can feel him pulsing inside her, his hot cum filling her up, eagerly going to fertilize her. She comes one more time from the feeling of finally being full for the very first time. It takes them a couple of minutes to come down from their highs, to come back to reality and realize what they just did and what position they were in. Oh fuck, Katsuki says after seeing the shocked look on Izuku's face, his cock still buried deep within her pussy. I'm so sorry, she says quietly, looking away from him, shame evident on her flushed face. Sorry for what, Kaken? Izuku asks, worry lacing his tone. He falls forward, bracing his hands on either side of her halo of straight blonde hair. I just ruined everything. You never asked for this and now I'm chaining you to me. This isn't how I wanted you to find out. I wanted to properly tell me, sit you down and explain everything and answer all your questions. There were tears running down her face as she silently cried. She loved him so much and never wanted him to feel like he was tied to her if he didn't want to be. But now it was too late. She could feel her womb setting to work, preparing itself to welcome the kitten she was sure they had just created. Katsuki's heat usually lasted a week before it ended, but she knew that it wasn't going to take that long to get her pregnant. Her heat would only end early if he successfully impregnated her before then. Hey, look at me, baby, Izuku said softly to her, moving one hand to cup her cheek and turn her face to look at him. Once her eyes finally met his, she froze, not knowing how to feel about the all-consuming love that shone in his emerald eyes. Izuku wipes her tears away before leaning down to kiss her, slowly pulling his flaccid cock from her, some of his cum flowing out of her onto his clothes under them. Katsuki lightly whines from the loss, her clawed hands coming up to grab the sides of his neck as they continue to make out, their tongues tangling together in an open-mouth kiss. I've suspected from the beginning that you were more than just a cat, and that you meant more to me than just your average companion. Izuku laughs lightly, emerald eyes filled with amusement as he now realizes something. Now I know why you could make me horny so easily and why I love you more than I should. Why you are so important to me. You are my soulmate. I can feel it in my bones. There is no ifs about it. Katsuki was speechless. The large greenette was now laying beside her, his long fingers combing through her blonde hair, propped up on his elbow, cheek resting on his open palm, an adoring smile on his face, eyes shining with affection. I don't know what to say. Aren't you mad at me for tricking you all these months? Katsuki stared at him, her voice laced with fear. I would like you to explain to me why. But I understand why you didn't tell me back at the royal palace. But no, I'm not mad, not even a little. I have loved you from the moment I saw you, and now all my inappropriate thoughts and feelings toward you make so much sense. Before Katsuki can reply, Izuku scoops her up into his arms in a bridal carry and heads for their bathroom. She squeaks at the sudden movement and clings tightly to him. Where are you taking me? She asks, looking up at him, eyes wide. We need a bath. We are all sweaty and covered in cum. I mean, you smell amazing, but I don't think you want to go to bed covered in us. Izuku chuckles, setting her down on the marble sink counter before going over to the large clawfoot bathtub to turn on the warm water. Well, okay. She was utterly speechless. Too many questions were running through her brain, making it impossible to focus on just one. Izuku eventually got the water to where he wanted it before coming over to once again to pick his lover up. Getting in the tub, situating Katsuki in front of him, between his legs. He starts humming as he washes her back, feeling like Katsuki wanted to say something, but didn't want to push her to talk if she didn't want to. As he washes her back, he notices all the scars across her back and arms. One long jagged line catches his eye on her left shoulder blade, his hand still, one coming to run his fingers over the mark. Katsuki shivers against him, goosebumps rising across her skin. What happened here? He asks, his voice low and gentle, still running his fingers over the old scar. I got it the night my kingdom was destroyed. From an enemy soldier. I was trying to save 3 kitten siblings who had gotten separated from their parents in the chaos. Her voice is equally low, pain and sorrow filling every word. I tried to stop it, that attack, but the king wouldn't listen. Then my mother tried it. A sob caught in his throat as he wrapped his strong arms around her, pulling her back into his chest. Katsuki could feel his pain, his grief. A soft, comforting purr started to come from her, along with a soothing scent, hoping to make my mate feel better. I knew who you were when I learned your name. My parents left me a letter explaining everything. I think I know why your father hates Nekos so much too. Izuku was surprised by her words, pulling back slightly, eyes wide in shock. Not even he knew that. Why? He asked. Was this way his mother was treated the way she was? I think it's because of our mother's relationship. My mother saved yours when they were in their early teens. After that, they became best friends and Neko became the only human to live within the Neko kingdom borders. Your father must have been the one that took her the day they had a picnic along the southeastern border when they were traveling through the kingdom looking for my mother's fated mate. My mother told me he showed up out of nowhere, attacking them and stole Neko away when Mitsuki was trying to get up with a knife in her leg. She never forgave herself for that day. I think your father hated that your mother loved the Neko woman more than him, Katsuki says, turning around in the tub to properly hold him. It all made sense now. Why his mother knew so much about Nekos. Why his father hates them so much. Why when he told his mother his father's plans for the attack that his mother was so furious and helped Izuku to try and stop the king's plans, even when it led to her death. Izuku was in tears holding his lover tightly to him, Katsuki rubbing his back. We can name our kitten after her, if you want. Katsuki's words stunned him, making his tears stop and eyes go wide before he pulled away to look at her like she grew two heads. What do you mean? He asked, looking dumbly at her. Deku, you know what it means when an animal goes into heat. It's to reproduce, to have offspring. I can already feel it inside me. Your seed is taking root within me, fertilizing me to create life. Do you not want that anymore? She says, slowly, becoming more and more panicked. Did he change his mind? Was it just the heat pheromones making him want to breed me? She thinks fear creeping up her spine. No, I guess it didn't really seem real till now. I didn't know it was 100% certain. But I do want to have a family with you, Kaken, more than anything, he says, trying to comfort her, instantly regretting his previous question. Don't lie to me, Deku, especially since I am still in heat. If you don't really want to have kittens with me, tell me before there is no going back. She growled at him, scarlet eyes sharp with determination. Of course I mean it. Kaken, I would never lie to you, and you know that. His voice was soft, but serious. Good. Oh, I guess I should probably tell you what my birth name is, huh? Katsuki Bakugo, she said before ducking her head under the water to rinse her hair, leaving a wide-eyed and shocked Greenette frozen in his spot. That was, until he felt Katsuki lick up the shaft of his cock. He moaned as Katsuki came back to the surface, giving him a seductive look. You're a princess, Izuku said, when he finally could get his words to form. Chief now, actually. Where my people live is where Yagi was suggesting you guys move to, at least to me. I won't leave you behind, and I need to eventually go home. We can't leave Shoto and Yagi behind either, she said, kneeling between his legs, down by his shins, hands resting on his muscular thighs. The tub was deep enough that only the top of her breasts was out of the water. Katsuki had a mischievous smile on her face, playful gleam in her eyes. He knows. Wait, could we go home with you? There are more Nekos. Izuku had so many questions now and Katsuki would answer them all, in due time, but currently she could feel her heat coming to the forefront of her mind, filling the air with her pheromones. This conversation would have to wait. They could both see that as Izuku's eyes started dilating and go hazy with desire, his cock rising in response to Katsuki's scent. Before either knew it, they were once again in bed, Izuku rough thrusting into her. The blonde is again on her elbows and knees, moaning into one of Izuku's shirts, his hands firmly holding her hips as he vigorously thrust in and out of her soaked pussy, growling with desire. So good, you feel so good, baby. Gods, can't wait to breed you, to make you fat and round with my baby. Izuku grunts, once again coming deep within Katsuki's cunt, making sure to be as far inside her as possible. Katsuki was a happy drooling puddle below him, completely sated, riding on the high of her last climax, loving the feeling of once again being so full and so warm from his seed deep within her womb. It was going to be a long night, but neither one of them thought Katsuki's heat was going to last the full week it usually would, let alone another day, if they kept at it at this rate. Chapter 9, 24 hours. Chapter text. 24 hours. That's all it took for Katsuki's heat to end. 24 hours. The mating couple didn't fall asleep last night till the sun was nearly rising in the sky, a brilliant reddish yellow shining into their bedroom as they shared their last orgasms, collapsing immediately after into a deep dreamless sleep. When Izuku woke up, Katsuki was gone. Fear and worry instantly wreaked havoc within his mind as he bolted up from bed, just pulling on a pair of trousers before running out the door, urgently searching for his lover, his most likely pregnant lover. He heard voices coming from the kitchen and directly changing course to go that direction. I was gone for one night. How the hell did you two idiots already trash my kitchen? What the fuck did you do to my favorite skillet? Shoto, this is your fault, isn't it? Katsuki was scolding the two males, running around her kitchen trying to fix everything they ruined, before groaning and turning to glare at them. If you two ever touch my area again, I will whip you, she growled before suddenly noticing Izuku in the doorway, standing there gawking at the trio. The others noticed her strange expression and turned in the direction of her gaze, surprised. Izuku, good evening. Wow, look at you, haha. Is there anywhere she didn't mark you, my boy? Yagi jokes, circling the still frozen greenette. Did you see Katsuki? She's covered in marks as well. Shoto smirked, going over to grab something off the counter before Katsuki growled and smacked his hand, scowling at him. You were gone when I woke up. I was so worried. Izuku whispers, rushing over to his growling mate, hugging her tightly. Oh, Deku, I am so sorry. I didn't mean to worry you. I was trying to make you something to eat before you woke up. She silently replies, arms wrapped around Izuku's naked waist, resting her chin on his chest, looking up into his worried, freckled face. She was roughly a foot shorter than her mate. It's okay. I was just scared something was wrong or it was all an amazing, wonderful dream. He murmurs back, looking down into her loving scarlet eyes, a soft purr coming from her, just like when she was in her cat form. So, are you going to be a dad by this summer? Shoto asks, with absolutely no tact, definitely not reading the room very well. Everyone freezes, especially the newly mated couple. Yagi can't help but burst out laughing, having to brace himself on the island countertop to keep from tumbling over onto the floor. Oh Shoto, my boy, that was great. He bellows with a hearty laugh, a huge smile on his face, while Shoto asks him what he means. And Yagi continues to laugh. Katsuki nods towards the door, grabbing Izuku's hand for him to follow her out into the dining room and down the hallway to their room. Neither says a word as they make their way back to their room, both anxious about what they need to talk about. Kaken, Izuku asks, sitting down on their bed. Katsuki was pacing at the foot of their bed, an arm wrapped around her stomach while the other held her chin in thought. What's going through that big, beautiful mind, my love? His question and tone stop her in her tracks. Neko pregnancies don't last the same 9 months as human pregnancies do. Ours only last 6 months, so our kitten will be born in June, which means we need to leave here as soon as possible. I hate to imagine what the king would do if he got his hands on our family. Plus, I need to make sure it is okay for you guys to return home with me. That alone is going to take at least 3 weeks of travel, if not more, Katsuki says, muttering, really finally looking at him, both arms now covering their unborn baby. Really, that short? How do you know you are pregnant? He wanted to take all his questions one at a time, to try and keep his mind from running off the rails with fear and confusion. Deku, that nickname fits you so well. More and more each day. The fact I'm not jumping your bones right now means my heat is successful. I have conceived the next generation. No matter what, I would have gotten pregnant. She tells him, watching him closely. She knew he wanted to have children with her, but still was scared. When should we leave to head to your home? Where is it? Izuku asks, thinking of his next set of questions, his emerald eyes trained on Katsuki's lower belly, finding himself with an overwhelming urge to touch it, to speak to it. She sees the eager look on his face, like a child secretly asking for a cookie before dinner. The blonde can't help but giggle at him, tail whipping back and forth behind her amused. Katsuki walks over to him, standing between his legs. She takes one of his hands and places it on her flat abdomen. If you want to feel, you can. There isn't much now, but in a month's time, I'll have a nice little baby bump for you to love on, Katsuki says, gently, love lacing into every word. It feels like a dream. You being here, being my mate, carrying our baby, our firstborn, all of it. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I would be this happy, Izuku says, bending down a little bit to place a couple of gentle kisses across her belly, after lifting her shirt up. I brought my people to an island along the eastern coast, a whole country away from here, 100 miles off the coast. There are only a couple hundred of us left. A witch, a friend of my family. She gave my people the ability to appear human to anyone not wearing the amulet she gave them. She gave me a magic mirror to be able to communicate with them while I was away. I left to lead suspicion away from my people. That was also what I ran off to get the first day we started our journey here. I'm sorry I scared you that day. It hurt me to leave you like that and to hear your cries for me, but I needed to get that pocket mirror. She walks away from him. Once she finishes talking, she shifts into her cat form to grab the mirror from under their bed. Izuku jolts and rushes to the edge of the bed to see where his mate disappeared to, only to see a silky golden tail sticking out from under the bed frame, confusing him even more. Kaken. His voice is curious. Katsuki's tail disappears and her furry feline head sticks out, a small silver pocket mirror in her mouth. Slowly, she crawls out from under the bed and shifts back to her true form once she is completely out. Emerald eyes blow wide from once again seeing the amazing sight of his lover naked. Get that look off your face. If you're good, I might fuck you later, she teases, seeing the lustful look in his emerald eyes and the lingering gaze of her plump breasts. She needed to hurry and show him the mirror before too much of her arousal leaked out through her scent, which she already knew was quickly filling the room with the smell of spices. This is the mirror she gave me. I'm the only one that can open it and use it. Tomorrow, I will contact my second-in-command and fill him in on the recent events. I've been briefing him every week while you guys were training, offering the object for him to look at. Izuku took the mirror from her, closely studying it. It was very beautiful, he had to admit, but that was the last thing on his mind. With dark, playful emerald eyes, he set the mirror on his side table, before turning to look at his amused mate going to lay across the bed. Now that that is done, how about we celebrate our coming child, our first of many I plan to make sure of, Izuku says, with a smug smirk coming to hover over her, laying gentle kisses from her mouth all the way down her body. Yes, this is the best way to start and end the day. They stay up for another couple of hours, making love to each other till Izuku goes to the kitchen to grab them some food, feeding every last bit to his purring mate. What should we name our baby, Kaken? Izuku asks, as they cuddle in bed after finishing their shared bath. The better question is, how many do you think I'll have? Katsuki giggles sleepily at him. Izuku chuckles, rubbing his fingertips up and down her upper arm. She was lying across his chest with Izuku on his back. Katsuki was tracing his abs with her fingers. Oh, that's right. A Neko's litter is usually between 1 to 4 kittens. I think we will have twins, since I am human. What about you? Izuku says, a happy smile on his face. I think it will be twins too. Maybe triplets. But I want their names to be a mix of ours. Maybe have our mother's name in there somewhere. Katsuki answers, putting her chin on his chest to look up at him, scarlet eyes brimming with peace. That sounds amazing. I want one of them to be named Kazuki though. What do you think of that name? He asks her, his emerald eyes studying her happy expression. I love that name. If you get that one, I want one to be named Izuki or Izumi, Katsuki told him, placing kisses all over his slightly hairy chest. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Were Izuku's last words before sleep finally claimed him, as well as Katsuki, both wearing blissful smiles on their faces, dreaming of their unborn children and all the wonderful things they want to show their kids in this crazy world. Chapter 10, Pack Up and Move Out. Summary, Smut Warning. Chapter text. Over the next couple of days, Katsuki and the boys talked with Aizawa and Kayama, who were very surprised to see the 3 humans and even more surprised to find out the greenette was Katsuki's fated mate. The knowledge that Katsuki was expecting nearly made Aizawa faint but did make Kayama faint. Once they finally figured everything out, the group set to work collecting everything they would need for their trip, including all the books on Neko's and Ko had collected during her years. They all refused to leave them behind for the king, or however came to live in this castle, to get their hands on. What are we going to do about the invite Izuku received 5 days ago? Shoto asked one day, when they were making a checklist of everything they were bringing with them. I think we should leave before then, by at least a couple of days. That way we can make sure to be gone if he sends someone to force me to attend. That only leaves us with a week to get everything ready, Izuku tells them, rubbing Katsuki's belly subconsciously, who was sitting in his lap, looking over a map of the eastern part of the continent, purring lightly. Yes, that sounds like the best plan. Thankfully, we don't have much of our own personal items to pack and we can hunt for food as we go, Yagi said, contemplating the best route they should take to Katsuki's village. They were all in the dining room, looking over maps and lists of everything they needed for this journey. I think we should take the route along the southern border of Nabala, the country that separates the Emerald Kingdom from the sea. That is an enemy to King Hisashi, but an ally to me. We will be safe there. And if we travel along the border, we are likely to not draw as much attention. The southern border is all forest land before the southern sea, Izuku says, thoughtfully, hand still on Katsuki's belly. Katsuki stared at the maps, remembering her time in those woods. Deku is right. I spent a great deal of time in those woods in the beginning of my journey. They are mostly empty with a couple of small villages dotting the area. I have been there a couple of times over the years because it is such a quiet place. Plus, there is an abundance of wildlife we can hunt for food. We will be riding along that forest for the majority of our trip, she said, pointing at all the villages and trying to remember all the good spots to make camp. Even better, they don't get snow and ice that far south, just rain, so that will be the only thing we have to contend with. Perfect, we have our route, now let's get packing. I don't think any of us want to test to see if someone will come looking for us early. We will have to take 3 wagons this time, Yagi says, sitting back in his chair, a small smile on his face. Indeed, each of us will have to take a wagon. Kaken will be riding with me. We should outfit the wagons with canvas covers as well. Don't want anything to get wet. What are we going to do about you, Kaken? Can you turn into a fully human form? Izuku asks, looking down at the small blonde female in his lap. It was less than a week after Katsuki's heat and already you could tell there was a glow to her skin that hadn't been there before. Yes, but I think it will be safer for me to just stay in my feline form. Some of those villages know what I look like and could alert someone we don't want. According to our intel, I died in that battle with those bandits. I don't want to undo that good fortune, Katsuki tells them, standing up from her spot on Izuku's lap, making the greenette whine lightly. She smirks at him, amused by his cute pouting face, before he realizes something, jumping up from his seat now. What about the babies? Will it be okay for you to shift into your cat form while pregnant? His voice was concerned, with a fearful expression on his face. He would never forgive himself if something happened to their unborn children. It's safe for the first month, but I will be showing in that form way more. The kittens won't change size. They will stay as they are. But I won't be able to move around very well the further I get into my pregnancy in that form, she tells them, seeing the tension ease from her mate's shoulders as he breathes a sigh of relief. Now that is cleared up, let's get packing and try to be out of here in a week's time, Yagi says, getting up. Shoto nods and gets up as well. They all head to their rooms to get ready, except for Katsuki, who moves to the kitchen to start organizing her cooking equipment. The days seem to fly by after they finally settle on a plan. When Izuku wasn't packing or training, he was helping and keeping an eye on Katsuki. She found his natural doting behavior absolutely adorable, and it warmed her heart to think about him doting on their kittens like this. Over those days, the trio of men had sold their livestock and anything else they wouldn't be able to bring with them, while Katsuki set to work preserving any food that she could. It was the night before their departure, and the men were sitting down at the dinner table as Katsuki set the last serving platter of food down in front of them. She had made them a feast fit for a king in preparation for the long journey they had ahead of them. This looks amazing, Kaken. Izuku beams at her, emerald eyes brimming with devotion. It had been a week and a half since her heat ended, and you could just barely see a slight baby bump on her formally toned stomach. A fact that always made her purr when she saw it in the mirror and made Izuku turn into a blubbering mess, covering her in kisses. Yes, thank you for the meal, Katsuki, Shoto said, a small smile on his face as he loaded his plate up along with a goofy smiling greenette. Yagi laughed at the boys and their eagerness to dig into the large buffet. Enjoy it while it lasts, boys, because after this we won't get to eat like this till we reach Katsuki's island, the older male says, dishing up his own plate. Katsuki smirks at them, taking her time to eat her food, scarlet eyes shining with amusement. He's right. It will likely be a month before we get to eat like this again, if we don't stop at any inns, of course, she says, thinking about an inn they could stop at, in a town that had never seen her before. It would be nice to sit down for a proper meal in her natural form, especially while pregnant. Katsuki had tested out her feline form a couple of times over the week, and when she did, you could definitely see the bulge in her belly from their kittens. She had begun grooming her belly in that form, something she had seen other expecting mothers do, but never understood why they did it till now. It was a comfort thing, like snuggling with a loved one or enjoying a warm drink on a cold day. When Izuku had first caught her licking her round cat belly, he could have sworn he died from a cuteness overload, turning into an even bigger simp from that day on, especially when he got to scratch her while she was grooming her full womb. Kaken Izuku stated as they were lying in bed that night, spooning in bed with Izuku lightly rubbing Katsuki's slight bump lovingly. What is it, Deku? Her voice was drowsy, feeling sleep pulling her under. If anything happens, I want you to run. To leave me behind and get to safety as fast as possible and don't look back, Izuku said, trying to keep his fears from taking control. He had been having nightmares for the last 3 days of something happening to them and Katsuki losing their babies, or her life, sometimes both. Izuku, nothing will happen to us, and there is no way in hell that I would ever abandon you. You are my mate and the father of my kittens. I refuse to raise them on my own. So, no matter what, you are stuck with me. We are in this together, Katsuki said fiercely, turning around to face him, determination burning in her serious scarlet eyes. I love you and I love our children, he said, kissing her, a kiss that quickly became more and more heated. Show me how much you love me. She challenges him, sitting up slightly to take off her nightgown, emerald eyes instantly focusing in on her breast. He smirked down at her, getting off the bed quickly to free himself from his pajama pants. The blonde Neko giggles at him, at his eager behavior to mate with her. With a mischievous smile, he dives back into bed playfully. Katsuki can't help but laugh at his antics, watching Izuku dive under the blanket to attack her in kisses that swiftly turn into nips and love bites. In the middle of a laugh, scarlet eyes blow wide, and she throws her head back in pleasure, letting out a long drawn-out moan. Izuku was eating her out, and his skillful tongue was rapidly turning her into a withering, panting mess across the bed. Izuku, she cries, coming on his tongue. The greenette drinks up every last drop, before poking his cockily grinning freckled face out from under the covers. Ready for the fun part, Kaken, he says, coming to hover over the flushed, lustful face of his lover. Yes, fuck me, she says, hands clawing at his strong shoulders, wiggling her hips around before lifting them up, her aching pussy seeking his cock. With a proud smile, the greenette gives in to her request, slowly easing his leaking cock into her greedy cunt. They both let out loud, satisfied moans, Izuku instantly shoving his face into Katsuki's neck to smell her amazing sexed-out scent of spiced candies with a hint of milk. That was a new development from the blonde being pregnant. Her scent now had an uncut of sweet milk, making it even more addicting to the already needy brunette. It was the first thing he sought out when he returned from training or working outside. "Kaken, I love you. I love you so much. Fuck, you are so good to me," Izuku chants, completely consumed with the warm velvety walls around his cock. His thrusts get sloppy as he nears his climax. "Izuku, I love you too. So very much. My love, my mate, the father of my kittens," she moans out, attacking his shoulders and neck in love bites and hickeys. That was it. That was all it took for him to come. Listening to her praise him and declare he was the sire of her children. The thought of successfully breeding her. "Kaken," he groans, giving one last deep thrust before coming right against her cervix. Katsuki screams, her walls tightening around him as she comes from the feeling of his seed filling her up. They lay there for a few seconds, coming down from their highs, basking in the love they hold for each other. With a gentle tug, Izuku extracted himself from his purring mate, kissing along her face and jaw. Sharing one more loving kiss, the pair laid back down. Katsuki curls up on Izuku's broad chest, still purring contentedly as sleep pulls them under. A blissful smile on the brunette's face, but a sobering thought dancing across his mind before the darkness consumes his consciousness. "No matter what, we will make it to Kaken's home, and no one will stop me from making sure my family is safe." Chapter 11. Never Traveling Again. Chapter text. There was a time where Katsuki loved to travel, to see new places and explore the unknown, but now she could not hate anything more. Riding in a wooden-covered wagon, on bumpy icy roads, in her feline form. How she wished to be able to be in her normal form. Or better yet, not riding in this god-forsaken wagon in the first place. Sure, Izuku had made sure to make her a very plush and comfortable bed. But still, it sucked to not be able to move much and to be bored for hours on end. One good thing, though, was that thanks to their new connection, Katsuki could talk to her mate in this form, making the trip a little easier. "Are we still in the Emerald Kingdom?" Katsuki asked Izuku through their link, turning her head to look up at him. Her bed was behind the passenger seat, so they could see each other when they wanted. "Yes, we should be passing the border today, later this afternoon. We are crossing where there are no guards or towns." Izuku thinks back to her, emerald eyes focused and scanning the area ahead, making sure there wasn't anyone that would see or stop them. That was the hardest part of their journey, constantly looking over their shoulders, watching for who noticed them, making sure no one recognizes them. All of them were beyond happy when they finally crossed the border into Nabala, especially Katsuki, who was able to return to her natural form once they were safe deep within the southern forest. She was finally able to walk without her belly nearly dragging on the ground or with a waddle. Izuku, however, loved seeing her in her feline form, all round with their litter. It always brought an adoring smile to his face and a smug smirk when Katsuki growled at him. Every town they had been through, they had had their ears out for any rumors from their home country. A good thing too, for when they passed through the first village within Nabala, they heard that King Hisashi had issued a warrant for Izuku's arrest, along with the rest of them. That had made Katsuki nearly have a panic attack, imagining what that monstrous king would do to her mate, vowing that she would kill him before he laid a nasty hand on her Deku. "How should we get across the water to the island? And where is it?" Izuku asked. They were camping a mile from the sea, and 5 miles from the fishing town that Katsuki's people traded with. You couldn't even see the Neko island from the mainland. It was far outside the usual fishing grounds, which further aided her people in staying hidden. "There is a stall at the local bazaar that we can get a ride on. I alerted them yesterday that we would be arriving tomorrow. Aizawa has gotten everyone prepared for your presence, but you will still have to prove your worth." Everyone stilled at Katsuki's words. "Prove our worth." They all looked at each other, before turning to give the pregnant Neko a quizzical look. "What do you mean prove yourselves, Kaken?" Izuku asked, sitting behind the Neko woman, both hands on her round belly, feeling their kittens kick his hands. "We aren't like the human kingdoms. We don't do things like you guys. Sure, we have some similarities, but we have our own traditions. So, you 3 will have to fight the best warrior we have, to prove you're worthy to live among us. No killing, but the first one to yield or be knocked unconscious loses," Katsuki said, gauging their reactions. She was worried that they would oppose her on this and ask her to overrule it, but she knew if she did, it would only come back to bite her in the ass later. Thankfully, none of them started questioning her. Shoto looked rather impressed. All Might laughed with an amused smile, and Izuku, well, she couldn't see his face clearly, but she could tell it had drained of blood. He figured it out. "Oh boy," she thought, scarlet eyes still trained on her frozen bug-eyed brunette. "But, Kaken, you are the best warrior of your clan. We can't fight you. I refuse to fight my pregnant mate," Izuku said, standing up, making an X with his arms while he vicariously shook his head, green curls frying everywhere. "You are the best warrior of your tribe?" Shoto asked, finding that he wasn't nearly as surprised as he thought he would be. After all, Katsuki was an exceptional fighter and on more than one occasion knocked the bicolored male so hard on his back that he lost his breath. "Yes, but Deku, please calm down." I won't be the one fighting. I can't. I can barely walk straight, let alone fight. You will be fighting my second in command, Shoto Aizawa. He will be the one doing your trial. But first, we need to get some sleep, then pack up and head into town tomorrow. I think it would be best if I go first and you all follow behind me. I can go into my human form before the blonde Neko could say more. Izuku cut her off, shaking his head. Though, I don't want to risk something happening to you. They know our faces and what you smell like. I will carry you in my arms in your feline form. The greenette's face was stern, filled with determination, emerald eyes swirling with every protective instinct he had. This was his lover, mate, and mother of his children. He would not let anything touch her, and he had heard from Aizawa that if certain people in town saw that Katsuki was vulnerable, they would try to hurt her, to get revenge for the chief stopping them from taking away a woman from her clan, to do horrible things too. If the story was to be believed, Katsuki gave them a beatdown that still left them scarred and broken 2 years later. Katsuki let out a tired, defeated sigh. She didn't have the energy for this. Their kittens were kicking her in the kidneys and one was punching her bladder. Fine. But I want you to know the only reason you are getting your way so easily is because your demon offspring are turning my insides to putty. She groans, trying to sit up to eat her dinner that Shoto had handed her during their conversation. Yagi once again breaks out in a belly-aching laugh, while Shoto chuckles, handing the hungry mother more stew. Izuku shifts nervously on his feet, a bashful expression on his face, but he couldn't hide the proud gleam in his emerald eyes. With rushed movements, he went to sit behind his mate again, letting her rest against him, putting his hands on her belly again, lovingly rubbing it, trying to soothe his hyper-unborn children. It works like a charm. As soon as they feel their father's large warm hands, the babies instantly calm down, gently moving around within their mother's womb. Of course they stop bruising my insides when you rub my belly. Katsuki growls, scowling down at her round belly with a betrayed look on her face. Traitors. Izuku can't help but laugh, kissing along the side of her neck affectionately, whispering soft "I love you" and "perfect mama" as he continues to love her, making the Neko mother turn into a happy purring puddle against him. The next morning, they pack up their camp and get on the main road towards town. They didn't worry too much about being recognized since this was the furthest point from the Emerald Kingdom, and if anyone did recognize Izuku, he would be welcomed like an old friend rather than an enemy. Just before they got onto the main road, Katsuki shifted to her Abyssinian form, curling up in her mate's lap. She would only be able to hold this form for an hour before she would have to turn back or risk harming her litter permanently. It was a beautiful spring day and the town was bustling with people, moving about their daily lives. No one even gave them a second glance as they guided their horses to the bazaar by the docks. When they finally made it to the docks, they guided the horses to a holding pen till they could find the trio of Neko vendors they were supposed to meet up with. It had been 35 minutes since Katsuki's transformation and she meowed painfully up at Izuku, who instantly sent her a message through their link. "We are almost there, love. Just a couple of more minutes." Gently he kissed her forehead, Shoto and Yagi right beside him. "There they are, the one with the cat logo. Do you remember what to say?" She asked him through their link once she finally saw Denki waving at her. Of course he was the one that saw me first. Fucking dunce, of course, she thought, rolling her eyes. With nervous footsteps, the trio of humans walked over to the duo of Nekos, hoping that they wouldn't be angry about being forced to bring 3 humans to their home. But that wasn't the greeting they got, much to their surprise. There were 2 males standing at the front of the stall, huge smiles on their faces as they looked at the group they had been waiting for. One was a redhead with spiky hair and very prominent canine teeth. The other was a blonde with a very energetic personality that was quite contagious. "Hey, you must be Izuku. It is great to meet you. We have heard a lot about you." "Wow, Katsuki, look at you. I thought the boss man was kidding when he said you got knocked up during your heat. Fuck, how long have you been like this? Hurry, we need to get her to the back room. She can't stay like this any longer," the redhead said in a mad rush, nearly making the newcomers dizzy. With a worried expression, the pair of Nekos pulled the greenette into the back area, which was separated from the front by a makeshift shed. "Here are some clothes, Chief," the blonde said, setting the clothes on a stool before walking back up to the front where Yagi and Shoto were still waiting, both extremely frazzled. It was now only Izuku and Katsuki in the back as she turned back, sitting down on the floor, panting and sweating. "Kakin, are you okay? Do you need anything?" He was becoming more and more anxious, resting a hand on her belly while the other hand pushed the sweat-soaked blonde strands from her face. "Water, please," she breathed out, smiling weakly at him. She knew it was a bad idea to take that form, but Izuku had been right. There were people here that would gladly hurt her in this form to get back at her for taking away their fun, and she couldn't have stayed in the wagon and risk someone finding her, even if the wagons were secure and well guarded thanks to Izuku's money. "Here, baby," the greenette said, handing over the canteen of water that the redhead had given him. "Thank you, Izuku. I think it was probably a bad idea for me to shift. Oh fuck. I need to have Kayama and Chiyo look over me as soon as we get home." Katsuki pants, putting her hand on his, over her belly. Then let's get you dressed and on that boat. Let me help you. Then I will tell Shoto to go sell the horses and wagons after we get the trunks and crates unloaded, Izuku said, nervously looking at his pained mate, fearing for his unborn children. Katsuki nods, too tired to say anything as the brunette helps her dress and sit back down. Before calling in her 2 clan members, Shitty Hair, Dunce, come here, she yells, shocking Izuku, who raised a curious eyebrow at her. Yes, chief, they said, walking into the room, happy to see their leader. Izuku, this is Ijiro Kirishima and Denki Kaminari, also known as Shitty Hair and Dunce. Where is Pinky? Katsuki says, her hand once again on her mate's on her aching belly. She is on the boat. She came back while you were getting dressed and took, Shoto and Yagi. Yep, them to go get the wagons and unload them. Kirishima tells them, holding out his hand for Izuku to shake, still smiling. Kaminari is doing the same. Izuku happily shakes their hands, smiling back. Katsuki groans, not liking all the happy idiot smiles around her. Good, let's get Kakin to the boat. I'm worried something is wrong with her and our babies, Izuku says, voice filled with concern and face pale with fear when he hears Katsuki groan in pain behind him. Without saying anything, the 2 Neko males nod and start to close their stall, collecting their stuff. Slowly, Izuku helps Katsuki get up. She makes her cat ears and tail disappear, making herself look human, wrapping a scarf around her head, trying to make it harder to recognize her. We are ready, Chief, Kirishima says, walking into the room, once again smiling. The pair nod to the redhead, Izuku helping Katsuki stand before they walk out into the sunlight. The walk to the dock is short and full of new colors, sounds, and smells Izuku has never experienced before. Emerald eyes wide in wonder as he looks around. Katsuki chuckles at him, pointing out little things here and there that she makes a mental note to show him later after their kittens are born. It takes them a little longer to get to the boat, but they eventually make it. The brunette and blonde male instantly become quick friends, bonding. The trio of humans were very surprised by how welcoming these 3 Nekos were to them and how easy it was for them all to become friends. Kat, oh my god, look at you, you're glowing. Everyone is going to go crazy when they see you. They are probably going to throw a massive feast too. Mina gushes, hugging the pregnant blonde, a warm smile on her face. Hello, Pinky, let go already. You're squeezing me too tight. Katsuki growls. Instantly Mina is pulled from her by an overly protective brunette, who pulls Katsuki back into his chest, arms wrapping securely around her. The trio of Nekos smile and coo at the pair, happy to know that their chief was well taken care of. You must be Izuku. It is a pleasure to meet you. We never thought that Katsuki was going to find her fated mate, Kaminari says, leading them onto the medium 2-mast fishing vessel. Yes, I actually have been fascinated by your people since I was a child, so finding out my fated mate was Kakin was incredible. My mother was in Midoriya and she loved you all. Also collected a lot of books and we brought them with us, Izuku tells him, making Katsuki smirk, knowing how much her mate was obsessed with her people, especially after hearing all the embarrassing stories Yagi and Shoto told her. Really, that's so cool. Aizawa told us about you and your mom. It's crazy to think the one that warned us is our chief's mate. Haha, that's awesome, Kirishima says, walking up to the others behind him. Alright, enough lollygagging. We need to get home. I'm tired and want a bath. Plus, I need the witch and old lady to look me over, Katsuki says, breaking the men and Mina up from their little bonding session. With that said, they all get the boat ready to sail, having already sold the wagons and horses. Yes, let's go home, Izuku said, smiling adoringly down at Katsuki, seeing her already staring at him with pure love in her scarlet orbs. Yes, home, she said, leaning up to kiss him, their hands resting on her belly, fingers interlaced together, as the boat pushed off from the dock and towards their future. Chapter 12, Arrival. Summary. Smut warning. Chapter text. All the Neko people on the ship dropped their human disguises once the mainland was out of sight, making the brunette squeal with joy, asking them every question he could think of that he hadn't already asked Katsuki. He is going to lose his mind from happiness when he sees your village, Yagi says, coming to sit next to the grinning blonde woman. Katsuki laughs, rubbing her belly. Oh yeah, I think he actually might faint when he sees the clothes and everything, Katsuki says, smirking at him amused, picturing what her mate would likely do. I don't doubt it. But what will happen to you two when we do arrive? The older blonde male asked, looking at her with his worried blue eyes. He feared that they would be separated, that Izuku would be taken away from his love and not permitted to share her home. He will move into my hut with me. Once things calm down, Deku will be made co-chief and rule by my side. If he wants, we can get married, Katsuki says, whispering the last part. She knew it was common practice for humans to marry the ones they loved, especially if the woman was pregnant, but Izuku had yet to ask her. Did he think she didn't want to get married? She had so many questions and no answers. Izuku didn't think Nekos did that. Get married. He will be thrilled to learn that you want to. It's been bugging him since you started to show, Yagi says softly, gently rubbing her back, both watching the very subject of their conversation, laughing and messing around with the others across the boat. A small affectionate smile rises onto Katsuki's face as she enjoys the company and watching Izuku finally able to let loose and have some fun. It took them a couple of hours to make it to the Neko island, and by the time they did make it, Izuku was practically vibrating with excitement. It took everything in Katsuki not to laugh at her mate's silly giddy face, something everyone else was also trying to do. Chief Katsuki, welcome home, an older dark-haired Neko man said, walking up to the group and bowing to the pregnant blonde before scooping her up into a hug. The entire tribe was behind him, shouting welcome home to their long-lost chief who they worried they would never see again. So, seeing her back, with a mate, and pregnant blew their minds. It's great to be home, Aizawa. This is my mate Izuku and his friends Toshinori Yagi and Shoto Todoroki. They saved me and kept me safe after I was attacked and gravely wounded. But I should warn you, Izuku loves Nekos, so be prepared for lots of questions, Katsuki says, a sly teasing smirk on her face as she looks to the greenette beside her, who is sheepishly looking anywhere but at her. Everyone laughs, except 3 people near the back. 3 Neko men that Katsuki knew were going to be a problem. They were old guards from the palace and had been pursuing the blonde Neko woman since before King Hisashi had attacked their kingdom. Thank you for welcoming us, but I would like to request that we get Kaken looked at. She held her feline form and I'm worried something is wrong with our unborn children, Izuku says politely, one arm around Katsuki's shoulder while this other was shielding her belly. Yes, let's get her over to Kayama and Chiyo right away, Aizawa says, escorting the pair to a red building designated as the Healing Hut. Everyone watches them pass, bowing as Katsuki and her mate pass them. Kayama and Chiyo were looking over the blonde, who was sitting on a twin bed, Izuku sitting beside her on a chair, closely watching the older women moving around. Are they okay? The greenette asks with a fearful tone, emerald eyes shining with concern. They are fine. If she had held that form for any longer, I don't think we would be able to give you good news, but they are all fine and very healthy. Would you like to know how many you are having? Chiyo asks, a smile on her aging face. Izuku and Katsuki both let out a relieved sigh before looking at each other. Yes, we want to know, Katsuki says, her voice filled with excitement, a smile on her face. They all chuckle at her, Izuku giving her a kiss before they turn their attention to the women. You are having triplets, Kayama says with a huge smile, clapping her hands together. Izuku's jaw drops to the floor, as does Katsuki's. Triplets. They were extremely surprised. Sure, they knew there was no way she was having just one with how round she is at only 2 months, but still, triplets. Before anyone could say anything, Izuku was jumping into the air, covering Katsuki's face and belly in kisses before letting out loud happy cheers, making the women giggle and watch him with smiles on their faces. Those that were around the hut could hear Izuku's little celebration and laughed, finding the human adorable. Once things had calmed down and Katsuki was done getting checked on, they all sat in the meeting hall of the Neko clan. Katsuki was sitting in her chieftain chair, with Aizawa and the human group beside her. Izuku had a hand on her shoulder, not wanting to be separated from his mate. As we all discussed, these 3 humans will join our tribe, but as is custom, they will prove themselves by fighting our greatest warrior to earn their place among us. Izuku Midoriya, son of Inko Midoriya, will become my co-chief and will be living with me in my hut. Yagi and Shoto will be building their own hut, as is tradition, Katsuki says, words echoing in the silence. The challenge will take place tonight, in the light of the setting sun. No one protests their chief's order, surprising the trio of humans. They had never seen anything like it. The power and authority Katsuki commanded. Izuku couldn't help but feel his chest swell with pride. That this woman was his mate and the mother of his children. It was 4 p.m., 2 hours till the challenge was set to take place, and the couple were in Katsuki hut relaxing after their long journey in the large tub in the blonde's bathroom. Izuku was sitting behind her, arms wrapped around her, large hands resting on her belly, feeling their children move around within her womb. God, I can't tell you how much I missed being able to be clean. Katsuki groans, sinking into the water, making the greenette chuckle, kissing her temple. Me too. I missed being able to hold you like this more though, he said seductively, nibbling along her neck. Katsuki moans under him, feeling one of his hands slide down across her belly and down to her needy pussy. With careful movements, Izuku runs a finger over her clit before starting to stick it into her leaking cunt. She throws her head back against his shoulder, panting, feeling the arousal course through her body. Fuck, I missed hearing the sounds you make. I want to sink my cock into you so bad. Izuku groans, his hardened erection sliding under Katsuki's butt and bumping against her pulsing pussy. You know, we have an hour before we have to get ready, Katsuki says, taking every fiber of her being to focus on getting that one sentence out before her mind once again fills with foggy desire. That's all it takes for Izuku to scoop his mate into his arms and rush over to her fur-covered bed. gently depositing her down in the center. He starts placing loving kisses across her skin, fingers once again massaging her clit. Katsuki arches her back, moaning at the wonderful friction inside her pussy. She can feel the coil in her belly tightening, knowing she was close to her orgasm. Deku, please, fuck me, she pleads, wiggling on the bed, spreading her legs wider for him. Izuku groans at the sight, eyes dilating completely. It had been so long since they had sex, and he couldn't take it anymore. He rushes to position his leaking cock at her eager entrance. Carefully, he slowly starts to thrust into his withering mate. Oh God, you feel so good. Better than I remember. Fuck. Such a good mate. So perfect for me. He grunts, picking up his pace, heading just right within his moaning lover. Katsuki arches her back as she comes on his cock, soaking the bedding beneath them. Izuku moans at the feeling, knowing he was close as well. He leans down and eagerly places his mouth on hers, biting her lower lip, asking for entrance. In a blink of an eye, they are passionately making out, moans and grunts pacing between them as Izuku's thrusts get desperate. With a loud chest-rumbling growl, Izuku comes, filling Katsuki to the brim with his seed, making her climax one last time under him. Fuck, I missed that, Katsuki says, a dopey grin on her face, eyes closed, face completely relaxed for the first time in over a month, all stress from travel finally gone. Izuku smiles down at her, kissing the tip of her nose. I love you. You are so cute. He chuckles, slowly withdrawing his flaccid cock from her. They both wince from the overstimulation. The greenette flops down beside her, a satisfied smile on his face. He looks over at her, seeing her eyes still closed. With a loving smile, Izuku pulls her close. Sleep, my love. You can take a small nap if you're tired. Katsuki can't even argue with him as sleep pulls her under. A cat nap sounded heavenly right now, and Izuku would wake her before the competition anyways. Chapter 13, Human vs. Neko. Chapter text. Aizawa was the one that came to their hut to wake them up, making sure to stay in Katsuki's living area. Katsuki was not happy to be awoken from her nap, but a kiss from her mate instantly made her a purring puddle in the pile of furs on the bed. Izuku was getting ready for the duel when Yagi and Shoto entered the hut, both already dressed and ready. Katsuki had left a couple of minutes prior to make sure the preparations were ready, telling him that Kirishima would come and get them when it was time. Are you ready for this? Shoto asks, looking nervous for a usually stoic-faced individual. Yes, just finishing lacing up my boots, Izuku said, feeling the building fear and anxiety. The blonde Neko woman had never told them what would happen if they failed this trial. Would they be forced to leave? What would happen to their children if he was forced to move to the mainland? What do you think will happen to us if we fail? He says, not being able to hold the question in anymore. I don't know, but I'm sure we will do just fine, Yagi said, trying to ease the worry from the two younger males. He's right, I'm sure you guys will be fine, Kirishima says, surprising the trio inside, causing them to turn to look at the red-headed Neko male. See, even Kirishima thinks so. Thank you, Yagi says with a bright smile, walking over to stand before the newcomer. We are ready for you. Please follow me, the redhead says, waving them to follow him. The four walked out of the chief's hut, seeing everyone in the village already there. Some were even following them to the clearing that was lined with torches for the duels. Katsuki was standing in the center, dressed in her traditional crimson tunic dress, black leggings, a fur coat on her shoulders, and finally coupled with a small golden floral crown. She looked beautiful and Izuku couldn't help but stare, mouth slightly gaping, emerald eyes shining with affection. Katsuki's tail was twitching behind her playfully, smiling at her mate. The trio came to stand before the chief, Kirishima standing behind them. They all were dressed in loose brown trousers and leather brown boots, shirtless, leather forearm braces. We are gathered here tonight to decide the fate of these three humans by trial by combat. There will be no dirty tricks or moves. Practice swords or daggers will be used only, and the victor will be decided by whoever surrenders or is incapacitated first. You will have 5 minutes to accomplish this goal. If it is a draw, I will decide the victor, Katsuki yells, motioning for a choice of sword or dagger to be brought before the trio. Aizawa will be the one to test them, as I am unable to do so myself, she says, putting her hands on her round belly that was showing through her tight-fitting tunic. Izuku's emerald eyes glaze over with territorial satisfaction and desire at knowing those were his children she was carrying, puffing out his chest with a proud grin. Katsuki gives him an amused look, rolling her scarlet eyes. Do you three understand the rules laid out before you? She says, once again becoming the embodiment of regal power. Yes, we understand, Your Majesty, Yagi says, bowing low to her. Shoto and Izuku do the same. Applause echoes in the clearing as Katsuki walks out, but not before pulling Izuku in for one last passionate kiss, their hands resting on her belly, their litter kicking their intertwined fingers. You better win, Deku, or you are going to be in big trouble, she growls seriously, scarlet eyes filled with concern. He chuckles, giving her a quick peck, cupping her face with one warm hand. Anything for you, my love, Izuku tells her. A single tear slides down her cheek as she walks backward, her eyes still on his. Once she was out of the ring, Aizawa came to stand before them, sword in one hand and dagger in the other, his face void of any emotion. I will fight you one at a time. Who would like to go first? The dark-haired man asked, his cat ears twitching at the whispers filling the silence. I will. Age before beauty, right? Yagi laughs, a smile on his face. Some of the Nikos in the crowd laugh, liking the humor amongst the serious tension in the air. Very well. Sword or dagger? Shoto and Izuku walk to stand along the outer edge of the ring, out of the way. Sword, the older male says, getting into his stance. Aizawa nods, setting his dagger down on the ground by the duo. Aizawa gets ready, his stance mirroring Yaga's. An eerie quiet settle on the meadow, the setting sun between them. Fight, Katsuki calls, and all hell breaks loose. Everyone was amazed at the skill and power this aging human had, putting up an incredible fight against Aizawa's attacks, even using some of his own. Before they knew it, the 5 minutes were up and a bell sounded to end the match, startling both contestants. It was a draw. Next match, was all Katsuki said, sharing a quick look with Aizawa to make sure he didn't need a break. He shook his head, turning on his heels to face his next opponent. Shoto was next. He also put up a great fight, but not as well as Yagi. He made one misstep, one miscalculation, and it caused him to lose at the very last minute of their match. The Neko people were speechless at the amount of skill these humans had and couldn't believe they wanted to live here with them. Finally, it was Izuku's turn. He chose a dagger, unlike the two before him, surprising everyone, except Katsuki, who just smirked smugly. Fight, Katsuki called once again, hesitance in her voice. Izuku was far more powerful than he looked, and Aizawa had dangerously underestimated him. It was over before he could even process it. The greenette had completely overpowered him, and with one precise blow, the older man was on his back, surrendering to the prodigious young man. My mate is the winner. Told you fuckers he would win. The boisterous blonde Neko woman hollers, a smug grin on her proud face. Cheers erupted in the evening air. Katsuki running into her mate's arms, covering his freckled face in kisses, her arms tightly wrapped around his sweaty neck. He laughs against her onslaught of kisses, his hands holding her up by her thighs so her legs can wrap around his waist. That was amazing, young one. You will have to teach me that move. Now, I think we have reached a decision, haven't we, Chief Katsuki? Aizawa says, taking an offered towel, wiping the sweat off his face and neck, pulling on his fur coat. Shoto and Yagi stand beside him, wearing their own coats. The village gathers around them, wanting to hear the verdict. Yes, we have decided. Do you want to tell them or should I? Katsuki says, not moving from her spot, or looking away from Izuku's mesmerizing emerald eyes. He smiles up at her, holding her tighter to him, kissing the tip of her nose. Aizawa chuckles with a happy smile before turning to the other two humans. You all passed. All your skills are very impressive, and I believe you all can be trusted. Plus, having fighters like you three here would be a huge advantage for us. The dark-haired Neko man says, looking at his chief and her mate. Tomorrow we will start preparations for Izuku to be crowned my co-chief, and Shoto and Yagi will find a spot where they want to build their hut, but tonight, I have a mate to spoil. Katsuki says with a wickedly seductive smirk. Emerald eyes shine brightly with arousal and humor, grinning at her. Some laugh and some groan at the lack of shame Katsuki possesses. Hiroshima and Kaminari face palm as the pair make their way back to their hut, while everyone starts the victory feast, welcoming their new clan members to the tribe. Izuku walked them into their hut, closing the door behind them. Scarlet eyes shine with mischief as she wiggles out of his grasp, taking his hand to lead him to their bedroom and to the bed. Before I give my mate the reward he deserves, I have something for you, Katsuki says shyly, turning around to go over to her jewelry box. Izuku watches her curiously, seated at the foot of the bed. He takes his shoes off as he waits, slipping his trousers off as well. So, sue him, he was eager and hopeful. There's nothing wrong with that. Once she found what she was looking for, nervously, she walked back over to stand before her seated mate, raising an eyebrow seeing her naked mate sitting before her, with a goofy smile on his face. Just looking forward to my reward, Izuku says sheepishly, face flushing pink. I see that. Anyways, I wanted to ask you something. I was talking to Yagi on the boat ride here and I realized something. That we never really talked about getting married. We are mated, but I never asked if you wanted to get married. So Izuku Midoriya, will you marry me? Izuku was completely stunned. Here his beloved mate was, holding out a beautifully crafted golden wedding band with a large ruby in the center. It was my father's. Before my parents passed, they gave me their wedding bands. It's gorgeous, and yes, I would be honored to marry you, Kaken. I love you so much. There were happy tears streaming down both their cheeks as Katsuki slipped the ring onto his finger and he pulled her in for a loving kiss. I was supposed to ask you, just so you know. She laughs, giving him a soft peck, hands cupping his freckled cheeks. Oh, just enjoy the moment. Do you want your reward or not? Katsuki says smugly, raising an amused eyebrow. I want it. Izuku shouts, maybe a little too eager, making her laugh at him. His face blushes bright red as he lays down on his back, hiding his face in his hands, flustered. Never mind, just leave me here to my embarrassment, he grumbles. Instead of replying, the blonde disappears from his line of sight through the slight crack in his fingers, only for him to suddenly feel a warm, soft sensation wrap around his cock.